Hey, we're gonna go on a different route because I went did some volunteering in the sun. Turn your heads left and right from the center. Street Montreal, Hawk Island, look at that. I decided that my video is gonna try to do a little bit more variety and change a little bit of those lanes, change a little bit of the trajectories. Although we have that fixed ASPE routine, ritualized routines to the mountain, now we're gonna go by the river. Grateful, thankful, my rent's paid, electricity bills paid my phone bill, that trinity of bills paid, and we're gonna go by here. That's a beautiful piece of art, Hawk Island, Montreal, here from Canada, La Belle Province. It is the 19th of August, and gotta commence with gratitude. Did a little bit of volunteering and helped a little bit unload two pallets of some toilet paper, and that was a little bit ago, for community center where it helps out the people in need and provides some services. It's always good to go and always good to rock and roll, and that is something which we have to be doing. It's sometimes which we gotta get on that transmission. And I worked with somebody a little bit from the LGBTQ community, had a laugh and had a little casual chit chat, and I let them know me too. I'm androgynous, pansexual, and a little joke. I said, "Yeah, pansexual. What is that?" I said, "You are the new school versus the old school." Homosexuals, got some love for my homosexual, gays, fellow LGBTQ community 24/7, and it was always fun. My only stress now is financial. Although now we're gonna work out, train, exercise, and I got some donations early. I got some lettuce, not romaine, but of course the other type of lettuce. And the lettuce, I got some fruits. I got a bit of cantaloupe, not watermelon, but cantaloupe, the yellow one, because they're too short. So here I am, always for the farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, firefighters, plumbers, electricians, those doctors, and of course the daycare workers changing some diapers. We're here, we're gonna go a different trajectory route here from Montreal, Hawk Island towards the sun, maybe put some sunscreen. It is 3:07 p.m. EST, and I gotta salute the truckers, the welders, the butchers, those train conductors, those of course on their planes doing a little bit of that trucking and delivering the goods. We got those delivered goods by a truck, so I always meditated on that, because 24/7 geopolitics, sports and fitness, and always for those changing daycare diapers, and for the workers, the train conductors, the plumbers, the electricians. And I heard on the news early this morning, gonna have to reconfirm that there was the solution found. If there was the solution found to the workers in Air Canada in regards to their strike, that is something which of course it's close to my heart as a pro-labor and love universal revolutionary centrist. You can see hundreds of my videos working out, training, exercising for the plumbers, the welders, the nurses, the doctors, and supporting strikes, supporting labor movements for a long time in the past year. So I'm asking here today, as I'm going to turn a little bit for the public workers, bus drivers. Salutation to the bus drivers, the truckers, and all the workers. We need to lay the foundations for the North American Canada-United States joint. Always for our empire of the 63, the workers' empire of the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the plumbers. Always for the train conductors, for those of course firefighters, for the plumbers, the butchers, the nurses, the welders, those who build bridges like this. Public workers, always for the public workers. 24/7, NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB. You need to give a little bit of that good money. Give some tickets, please. Give some tickets, please, and focus a little bit outside of my face, because you've seen enough of my face, and I guess you can see a little bit of this environment here in Montreal, Hawk Island. You can see the highways, and gotta salute the workers who build all the steel for us to have electricity. Look at this big pole. Sometimes we take them for granted, eh? Sometimes we take them a little bit for granted until we have them now, and that is always something which of course we have to appellate and conjugate when we take a look at all those steels, how they were built in consequence. Of course, the consequential building. Always of course gotta meditate how they were built, and how long they are. Sometimes we take all of this for granted. But of course they were built consequentially, of course, to get it on the gold, get it on the transnational side. And somebody gotta sing that rock and roll for the boys and girls in blue. Nobody's perfect. That includes that me and you. Ain't nobody perfect. That includes that me and you. And I gotta sing some of that rock and roll for our boys and girls who take their second chances and do their criminal rehabilitation. But those poles is transmission poles. Workers of the 20th century, gotta think about them. Hey, who built all those big poles like that? Think about it. Here at the Ville de Montréal, we're taking a different route, and all this. Sometimes we take for granted the electrification as it is a privilege of civilization. Civilization is a privilege, and was my thesis back in 2023. Call all to support to revise if you want to commission any work when rock and roll specific. Rock and roll and sports and fitness. And of course rock and roll, sports and fitness. And of course that is my special interest, rock and roll, sports and fitness. And of course the aspect of the geopolitical situations, economical, social, financial, and of course everything to do with geopolitics is my sports, my domain. And here I am traversing a little bit on the other side, and that's the aqueducts. Aqueduct, Ville de Montréal, and this is an older school building, but you see here Aqueduct de Montréal, you know, sometimes it takes a little bit of that old school and with the new school, of course, to get it on that drill, and sometimes we get it old and the new in together in the 21st century, 2025, August 19 today. So here's the Aqueduct de Montréal. Thank you to the workers in the Publik past, present of the 63 always, for the 10, the 50, and the 3, and here's the aqueducts. Aqueduct de Montréal, and here's you got the water and the fire combining together to do a little bit of drill, and we're gonna take a little bit of that side of the street there and cross the street and go around about it. I guess we can go by the side of it, take a look. So got a big gratitude. So you can see part of the downtown core area, you can see part of the mountain there, that's of course part of the downtown core area. You can see the skyscrapers, you can see the truckers there moving, and now we got a few seconds, and always gotta salute the bus drivers always, bus drivers, public transit workers, metro drivers, so driving those metros. And here we go on Joseph, Saint-Jamel and Joseph, and that's a nice one. It's rare that we come here. I think I haven't passed by this place in about 7 years, maybe 6, by this aqueduct. So this is where the aqueduct says there on the building, Aqueduct Ville de Montréal. So this is where the aqueducts are for some of the parts of the old, and I guess they're still functioning for the aqueducts, of course, of how they were built in the place of our civilizational construct, of course, with all the brains and muscle which enabled us to have the running water. So now I'm gonna see all the running water. This, of course, is some of the practices date back to the ancient Egyptian, ancient Roman Empire, the building of aqueducts, you know. But that's what it says there, Aqueduct de Montréal. And you know, all this civilization is a privilege, the privilege of civilization, and I'm glad that I get to salute. And this building looks like it's from the early 1900s, maybe the 1900s, 1930, 1920, 1910, even the 1800s maybe, something like that, but it's not inscribed, but that's what that says. So that's related to the water in the city, you know, probably built in the 1800s, 1880s, or between 1880 and 1920. It's quite cool. I like it. You see, you have a little bit of that Roman type of architecture to it, and that's what gives us the water, the water we have. It's all a big system on the ground. This big city metropolis, the island of Montreal, is surrounded by a big river, you know. So that's marching always for those who have built the civilizational complex, you know, the public workers of the past. 20th century flag spotted, although that's Quebec flag. I gotta show my flag whenever I spot the flag, because, you know, I got that flag when I spot it, and I got that fleur de lis there, and I got both the Quebec flag on me to add it up, and the Canadian flag. So I always open carry my flag, and that's what it is with that. That's what it is with the go, and that is something which we have, of course, on the appellational propositions, and that is just something which we have, you know. Here is the aqueducts, and it's quite cool. See, you have visitors and livraison, and here we're gonna cross the street on the other side here and go on Joseph Street. Joseph. Okay, and you know, some of the name of the streets are 200, 300 years old even, you know, before Montreal was known as Montreal, and the name of the mountain supposedly comes from Mount Royal, the mountain, you know, the mountain Mount Royal, and the headquarters of our coming empire, the 10, the 50, and the 3, and it's always that dimension as we have here, you know, on the prepositions, of course, as we LOV always. For the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the plumbers, marching steps. Although we gotta get that work collective for the North American Collective Workers Party. Let's lay the foundations together for the Global Dragon Union, the North American Collective Workers Party, for the Global Dragon Union, the North American Collective Workers Party, for the Global Dragon Union. That's what we have to do, and that's what we have to reiterate in all the prepositions and all the foundations which we have, and you know, that's what it is. And I just made an acquaintance, part of the LGBTQ community, you know, with Asperger's. It's more difficult to maintain friends, but he was happy. He said he was gonna go to get a massage tonight. I said, good for you. No names, and keep it anonymous. I wish I could get a massage myself. I've been craving one for years. That's why, of course, it's always open for business if you want, and you can exchange massages, you know, which we can exchange massages together, you know. We can exchange massages together and be friends with benefits, you know. That's what I'm gonna play it now, friends with benefits only, and that is something which we have to appellate, and of course put the proposition that, yeah, I have bodily cravings and I crave a massage therapy session. I've been craving one for, I guess, years now, but hey, if somebody gonna get it who's, you know, also coming from that struggle, you know, that's more than likely. And you know who needs to be financed massage therapy sessions? The public workers, those who pick up the garbage every day, every week, pick up the garbage, the collective garbage collectors who pick up the garbage, picking up the garbage, the compost, the recycling, 3 services, and my family here in Quebec, you know, and got a lot to be grateful for, you know, although sometimes, you know, you got to get on those dimensions where you are the gratitude, and then you get a little bit of that mental health by irregular fitness, and it's a great component of mental health and mental health components where we are, of course, to get it on the go, and that is something where we have to do, and something where we have to appellate together, and of course that is the aqueducts, you know. The aqueduct is something which we have to appreciate, and of course sometimes the aqueducts, we gotta get it on those principles that it is a functionality of our civilizational complex, you know. And, you know, that's just something which sometimes we don't meditate on a daily basis when we open the tap water. For example, that required much work and labor. Much work and labor. Much sweat, even blood, sweat, and tears, you know, to build all the aqueduct system, you know, for us to have the running water, you know. So for us to have the running water, it required a lot of work, you know. This is all the privilege of civilization, and one of the aspects is the water, you know, the water on the earth. That's what it is. And of course, besides the water, we have the electricity. You have the water, the electricity, and certain things. You put the water in the fire. 2 aspects of our civilizational privileges. Of course, we have the Patab. See, it says there, Ville de Montréal, Le Patab. It says potable water. Potable. So that's related to the potable water, the water that we can drink, as I'm here at the corner of Joseph and Regina, you know. So that is the work which was done mostly, which we inherited from the 20th century, right? But much of it reverberates from even before. But as a reference, of course, to the public workers, because it's public, right? And that's why my dream is always a public-private partnership for the collective North American civilizational complex. Always for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, firefighters. Please, may and as Wall Street be trading now. Buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell. Buying future option puts. And of course, always think about it, that it is those who pick up the garbage, the recycling, and all those, of course, who do other work. And oh, this is a great one here. This is a great little park. I can do a little bit of just thank you to the workers who build the park here. Just gonna stretch a bit, I guess. You can do it on that elongation and stretch a little bit here. Let's do some stretching. How we if we can do. It's always something which we gotta think about and we gotta resolute, and of course we gotta appreciate this right here, because this was built, of course, with some brains, with some muscle, and it's always interrelated to our North American civilizational complex, our empire, to beautify and embellish and build more public spaces here where people can work out, where people can train, where people can exercise in the open space here on the island of the Hawk, H-A-W-K. You can always check a little bit of that good dimension and do some pull-ups and do some squats and stretch left or right and do it right or left, and then go up and then go down and then do the reverse, and that's about where we go, you know. That's where we go and that's where we are, you know, and it's something which we have to be doing. Oh yeah. Yeah, this is a great place here to do a little bit of that good workout, and I think today is a bit higher than yesterday, the temperature, so it's always stretching up and down and doing some of those squats and doing that workout and doing that up, doing that down, going down, going up, going down, going up, and that rock and roll, you know. That is sometimes which we have and some things which we do, you know, to getting on the plums and getting on that arbite and getting for the go, and you know, we gotta sing a little bit of that rock and roll and do some of those. Yeah, that was fun here, and it's good to know how you can use it a bit. You can have the use for it, and perfect because it has a little bit of that water, so it's perfect. Yeah, let's see if we can drink some water here. Gonna wait a bit. Oh, it doesn't work. Fortunately, it doesn't work. It's funny because we're next to the potable water where you're supposed to drink a little bit of that potable water, but it doesn't work, and that's why you gotta get doing like that. Gotta get doing on the go, man. That's what we have to be doing like that, and we gotta get on that drill and going a little bit on that zigzag towards the sun. We're going basically. It's not that sunny that we have to put sunscreen. I don't think it is important for us to use sunscreen at this point in time because it's a bit cloudy. So here I am, to be honest. Last time I took this route and I saw that aqueduct, it's just before COVID. It's been 6 years, even 7. So Montreal has so many things to see, to do. You could just, you know, it's a big metropolis. It was the most populated city for a long time. It was the most populated city for a long time. Until now, of course, about 2007, 2008, when Montreal became, in many ways, supplanted, if you will, by Toronto. Toronto became the most populated. Is it 2007, 2010, or 2012? But for many centuries, Montreal was the most populated city. And that's why I gotta get that rock and roll with it. And it's still 2.5 million people on the island. We're surrounded by a big river here. And this is my home in this life and in another. And that is something which we have to do. And we have, of course, to appellate. And we have, of course, to conjugate. And we have, of course, to fully understand the dynamics of all the propositions and all the things which we have, of course, as individuals, as sovereign individuals that we are. Of course, can be sometimes weird and neurodynamic in all the circumstances where we are and where we have to be in all the layers of the victims of the civilizational complex. And we gotta get sometimes a little bit of that loving, you know, sometimes which is good, and we gotta get on those for my aunties there. A little bit of dog, a little bit of doggy, get the Well, with our little dogs having fun in the dog park, and that's always nice to see that somebody built that dog park for them. I guess and for the dogs is also good because it's good to have a place to go. I love poodles. Otherwise, the other dogs I can't pet them too much. And not at all if they have long, thick fur. So I admire from afar because I start sneezing. I get sneezed, you know. I sneeze. So it's just sneezing, you know. Sneeze. But poodles I can pet. The other dogs make me sneeze. I started going down a chew. Not big reactions. They're basically allergic reactions. So here it is. Using at Waterville de Montreal. Salutations to the workers keeping us our water. Sending some loving. We gotta integrate across the 63 all the public workers. Mass public-private partnership, my dream is the dancing goddess in the Dragon Kingdom, the Empire. For the 63, gotta send some love in, you know. It takes some muscle, some brain, imagine, eh? All to have the plumbings, and the aqueducts, and all the system, you know. And this is using the water, hot water here. So, yeah, that's using hot water. That's related to the potable, drinkable water, right? And you got public works there, and it's something which we gotta get salutations on the day, which we will, by the DGA, Dancing Goddess Army, and the Dragon Army for the 21st century. That is the purpose, you know, and that is the beauty of that crane, because I will to build 4. Let's build together on the Canadian-US border, the Imperial People's Coliseum, the Imperial People's Coliseum, you know, the Imperial People's Coliseum. The Imperial People's Coliseum to be 11 times bigger than the past building, which was known as where the Super Bowl 47, one of my top favorite Super Bowls, was fought, played, and battled out. Also known as the Harbor Bowl, aka Blackout Bowl, is now known as the Caesar Superdome, and before that it was known as the Mercedes-Benz. And before that, it was known as the Louisiana Dome. So he changed names just like I changed names several times, but that's what it is with that, and that's how we gotta get doing, and that's how we gotta get doing on that rock and roll, and it's something which we gotta get together, you know, and build it. And me and Donald Trump, because it's a Dragon versus Trump edition. Beautiful. I got some talent there. Let's go check it out. So me and Donald Trump are gonna fight it out in a boxing match. See, that's the mountain. You can see here we're miles and kilometers away. That's Westmount, and that's the oratory, and that's where we were yesterday, last night. But see, that's Westmount, one of the 3 peaks, and that's the mountain, Mount Royal there. See, that's where we were. That's the antenna. In the night, that's the antenna on the mountain there. But here, we're far off. We're tens of miles and kilometers away. It's like 13. So the mountain can be seen afar off, see? That's where it is. That's where the mountain is, and we're gonna go to check out that graffiti there, and let's build. Me and Donald Trump, we're gonna fight it out in a boxing match and have an inauguration match in order to build the biggest ever sports arena complex ever built on the Canadian-US border for sportists in perpetuities. Here it is. Quite cool, eh? Somebody's got talent. 2018. Yeah, I think last time I passed here, it wasn't even here, so that means that I might have passed here before 2018, because if it was made in 2018, meaning I came by here by 2017, 2016, 2015 maybe, because you know my memory prior to 2014 March 2014 is pretty much hardcore, because before that I don't remember much of my life, so I don't know. What remains a mystery is got retrograde amnesia, so it's memory. You don't remember my life prior to 2014, spring 2014, like February, March, April, stuff like that. March, April, something like that. So that's what we have to do, and that's what we have to get on the go, and that's how we have to get that category in, and category for the left, for the right, and in the center, and to get doing on those appellations. So let's get back to building on the Canadian-US border the biggest ever sports complex for Sportus in perpetuities to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome, who changed names just like I changed name, although you gotta get that paper money to still officially change it, although I changed it. It's like changing it every day. Adrian H. Dragon becoming Adrian Hana Dragon. Keep my name out of your mouth if it's not for a blessing. That's how we got, and that's how we gotta get that drilling for the loving, and we're gonna build it, and it's gonna be the biggest ever, biggest majestic sports arena coliseum for fitness activities, 24/7 sports, all sorts of sports, and the inauguration event, sportsmanship event. It's gonna be me versus Trump, because in the backpack, which I'm carrying now, this backpack, this red backpack, I got those, which my anonymous friend, who wasn't my friend because of the money, because I never had any, donated them to me. I got them a few years ago after I started. Actually, I got into politics when Donald Trump made a mistake. Granddaddy Trump ain't no way to invite Canada by tariffs, but wow, those are gorgeous. Although they're not real, I like the color. Pretty nice, eh? I love it, because it's not representative of my fellow LGBTQ community, which I am, being not only neurodivergent, I have Asperger's, but also androgynous pansexual, and that's what it is with me, so that's what it is. So, rock and roll. Me and Donald Trump are gonna fight in a boxing match to inaugurate this building, and we're gonna build 3 others, so we're gonna build 4 total via the implementation of my DRT, get acquainted with my theories, philosophies, and initiatives for the empire of the People's Workers' Empire, the North American Collective Workers' Party, pro-labor and love, universal revolutionary centrist, and pro-labor and love, universal revolutionary centrist. So we're gonna build. Thank you, builders, construction workers. Adrian Hana Dragon gonna need you, and that's all we have to do. So we're gonna build the big Coliseum, Imperial Coliseum, to be 11 times bigger. To be 11 times bigger. 11 times bigger. 11 times bigger. 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome, where my 49ers lost. Although they lost, my Niners reduced the cost of the tickets, NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB. It is one of my favorites still. They lost not by much, by a few, 3 points, but still a loss, I guess. And Super Bowl 47, one of my top 5 favorites. Super Bowl 47 has several nicknames. One of the nicknames is Hardball Ball, the other one is Blackout Ball, the other one's Blackout Ball. So it's got like 4 different names. Although Super Bowl 47, that's the number, that's what colloquially the Super Bowls are in terms of numbers. It's Super Bowl 47. My 49ers lost to the Ravens. So several Super Bowls were played where Super Bowl 47 was fought and battled out. But that's why my 49ers lost it. That's why we gotta get drilling with that, and so we're gonna get to the river. So basically, that's what we're gonna do. Me and Donald Trump, we're gonna inaugurate it in a boxing match on the Canadian-US border, and we're gonna build this fortress in perpetuities, where we're gonna have a massive public-private partnership, and of course 11 also parallel to the Imperial People's Coliseum. We're gonna of course build the Forgotten Goddess temple to be also 11 times bigger than to also be 11 times bigger than the oratory, St. Joseph's Oratory in Montreal, the St. Joseph's Oratory. So we're gonna have 11 bigger as a sports complex, and for the Forgotten Goddess, GODDSS Goddess, we're gonna build that complex as well, and that's how we're gonna drill it here, always for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, and the truckers, the firefighters, and the plumbers, the electricians, and the welders, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food. We're gonna get it for the public workers, and we're gonna build a pyramid. Scarlet and crimson are shades of red, basically. Scarlet and crimson are shades of red. Scarlet and crimson are shades of red. So that's what scarlet and crimson are. Shades of red. Scarlet and crimson is basically a red color. Like speaking of red, that's scarlet, right? My favorite color, what I'm wearing, and of course red, scarlet, crimson are more vivid, fiery red types. They're more fiery red. They're more fiery red, right? Just vivid. Crimson and scarlet are shades of red. Because I remember years ago, 6-7 years ago, I went for asking for crimson and scarlet, and they said they didn't know what it was. They said they didn't know what it was with that, and they said they have a little bit of difficulty knowing what they are. I said, no, it's actually red, but it's like a special type of red, and that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing with that. So here we got some public workers. Gotta watch them when they cross here. Gotta get on that, go for that, and you got some good work, man. Good arbeit there. Something good, you know? Something good where we got, and kind of getting on, of course, on all the side of the things where we are, and when we muster all our individual, of course, capabilities and characteristics that we have. To salute also the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, the welders. Please don't leave trash there. Kind of recycle it, because I don't know if that's compostable, but it's got to get on that compost or recycle, because it's gonna make nuisance to the environment. So if you leave it in our environment where plants grow and stuff like that, then you have to be aware of that. So that's what it is. It's 24/7 with yours truly, geopolitics, sports, fitness. And I'm going to discuss about the 4 again. I'm going to get a little bit of Asperger's, because it's part of what I am, you know. It's part of integral, part of my being as a neurodivergent citizen, but it's something which cannot be, of course, medicated, because it's not a disease. So let's build a 4. Let's build together the North American, like I said, the Imperial People's Coliseum, to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar's Superdome, then the Caesar Superdome, 11 times bigger. 11 times bigger. So this is gonna be huge. This is gonna be huge. Oh, this is, you can see there, French though. That's what it is with that, and that's what I'm gonna get doing like that. So of course we're gonna get on that hydration, because of course hydration is super important when you're gonna get workout. When you work out, train, exercise, super important to hydrate often, because already I feel a bit thirsty. So thirstiness, when it's hot, then that means I got to hydrate. So we're just gonna, where could be the best where we can hydrate? I guess there would have been the spot, but we're gonna just advance a little bit more. So let's build a 4. Before I get into Asperger's, I'm gonna clarify what my call to build a 4 are for Union of Canada, United States. Via mass public-private partnership, we need to get the North American Collective Workers' Party, aka the Global Dragon Union, a 21st century labor union, integrated labor union founded by yours truly Aspie, artist, athlete, philosopher, financially stressed, but broke. That is something which we have to get doing with that, and have to get doing on that go, you know, something which is integral to our part being. And of course there was a big labor dispute in Canada, which affected a lot of turbulence due to it, but which it seems to have resolved. So I'm going to check when I get back home, of course, but it seems for the most part that there was a resolution to it. There was at least, if not a partial resolution in regards to the strike. Last I heard this morning, but again, I am not fully sure if it is 100% resolved, or if it's on the way to being resolved. So, because there's always information as we go, but from the latest I heard, there was a deal made, they struck a deal to pay. I guess they kind of got what they asked for, from my latest understanding, that I'm gonna have to check and reconfirm tomorrow. there's a big strike here, Canada, I guess, biggest in 44 years, they said, or something like that, and maybe in history. Got to double check the information, but it was, of course, related to the flight attendants and their requests, whatever. So the requests were several, but there were several more important ones to, I guess, get paid for some work, which of course they had claimed, of course, that there was some work to be done, which they had not. They were not paid basically by when they formal entry, and I guess there were technical matters where they only got paid when the plane was in the air, so one was flying, and so technicalities, not for the boarding, of course, technicalities. And there's a lot of these technicalities which exist in the business world, where we're not in the commerce, business, financial world, related to time, how the time stamps, how time sequences, time frames, time elaboration, all to do with time, which are sometimes not that well known by either the workers or the public, how these matters are, which are, a lot of them are not just. It's unjust, right? And let's be honest, I mean, the CEO, chief of Air Canada, made plus bonuses, but made a salary of more than $12 million last year. And that's why I'm always asking on the owners and the athletes of the NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, National Basketball Association, and MLB, to give a little bit of that hydration, and give a little bit of that, not only hydration, but by this what I mean give hydration is to give tickets. It's a way for me to say give a little bit of something to the thirsty, give something to the thirsty, so basically to give some tickets to the public workers, is gotta get it on that, so we gotta get it on that. So of course they have to, of course, fully understand that there matters in the complement and of course in the complementary aspects of our daily life and daily routines living is something which of course we have to involve ourselves in the domain that these things exist, which of course are a lot to the detriment of the workers in many ways. So this was something I guess the public also learned. It's interesting, that all the details aside, if the flight attendants were not paid when boarding, that is still it's still work, right? Because you're boarding you're checking the tickets, you're double checking the boarding. It's part, of course, of a work process in many ways, but it seems that they were not paid, right? For that labor, that work at that time, and that if they were only paid for the time when they were flying, right, there's a few hours of not being paid for certain hours. Here's a perfect place for us to hydrate on this bench on Boulevard des Marchés. That's all we got. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, so that was a good place to hydrate, right? Oh yeah. That's all you have to be. I love these. Oh, pretty nice. That's what it is with that, and that's what we have to do. And yeah, this is all the integral part of our society. We're not even fully aware, eh? Imagine the fact that they were not paid for that. Only when bored, with the boarding, right? It could last a few hours or check whatever. So it seems like they were not paid for a few hours of labor, really, which is kind of work. But it's the same. It's also kind of when you consider different types of work, when it comes to bureaucratic work or other work, right, which is paid by the hour, or somebody who's paid from the public works just, of course, by sitting. They are responsible for public work and just considered by sitting, right, because he's sitting in the public works and the others are doing some labor, but for the time that he's sitting, he's still paid by the hour. So that's what it is. Rock and roll, rainbow 24/7, and it's a beautiful wolf here. Wow. Beautiful wolf. So back to building the 4. Let's build together the Imperial People's Coliseum on the Canadian-US border to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome, and of course on the Forgotten Goddess Temple and the pyramid, the House of the Dragon pyramid, Scarlet Crimson, and another one which we're gonna build is the House of the Dragon, and the other one which we're gonna build is the House of the Dragon and the Rainbow People's Palace. For my fellow LGBTQ community, we're also gonna build a Rainbow People's Palace for the fellow LGBTQ community. Well, I got a bit clumsy sometimes. Aspies, we can be clumsy a bit. So now I'm gonna discuss Asperger's. It's just 5 minutes. It requires for me to discuss it because it's integral, of course, of what we are, of course, in the dynamics where we are, to discuss of Asperger's, you know, and that's what we have to be doing, and that's what we have to be doing with that, you know, so that's what we have to be doing, you know. So Asperger's is a neurological mental divergent condition, not a mental illness. I'm not a disease. Asperger's is not a disease. Asperger's is not a disease. It's just we see the world differently because our brains have mutations, you know. Our brain have mutations. Our brain has mutations. Aspie brains are different, right? So an Aspie brain has these mutations. Aspie brains has... So an Aspie brain basically has mutations at the microscopic level, of course. It's not visible to the naked eye. It's not protruding on the brain, outside of the exterior of the cranium, that is. It's internal, right? At the microscopic level, right? So it's internal, right? It's internal and not external, protruding outside. So these mutations make us a bit kind of weird, socially awkward, because we don't see the world we don't see the world the same way, right? We don't see the world the same way, and we process information differently. And sometimes certain social understandings, manners, we don't fully understand, you know? We don't fully understand, or, of course, implement. We don't fully understand or implement. So this social lack of social skills or knowledge and can be very difficult. An Aspie like myself always has to work on these characteristics. They're characteristics, not traits, right? They're characteristics and traits, not symptoms. I don't use the word symptom. Symptom is for an illness, while Asperger's is not an illness. It's not an illness, and it's not a disease. I am not a disease. Having Asperger's is not a disease. We are just difference socially. And sometimes this social difference can, of course, be, one can see, or one usually can, neurotypicals can usually detect or can see, can sense this difference, right? And it's sometimes, for example, repeating things twice. Repeating things twice. Repeating things twice. Repeating things twice, you know? Repeating things twice. So sometimes repeating things twice or 3 times, or ukulele also, saying the same words or a phrase exactly as somebody else has said, or being obsessed, intensely speaking about a subject or a topic. For example, the special interest, right? My special interest is geopolitics, but somebody else's special interest might be another special interest, might be cars. If an ASPE special interest is cars, then an ASPE will just discuss for hours and hours and hours and actually know so many details about the cars. They will look at a car and they will be able to discuss about the car, the model, when it was built, when it was done, when it was built, and how it was built. So if an ASPE has automobiles as a special interest, then the ASPE will be able to tell you, for example, how much this car consumes per 100 kilometers, how much distance, what is the most problematic mechanical issue with it. So things of that nature, the more technical nature of the car. So if an ASPE has a special interest, for example, architecture. Vous avez un chat derrière vous?
Non, je sais, mais c'est pas à moi.
Ok, c'est pas à vous, pour pas qu'il vous saute là-dessus.
Ah, il est derrière.
Ben, je l'ai vu, je sais pas s'il est en arrière, là, mais je l'ai vu en arrière. Ah, il est parti. Salut, bye. Ouais. Si vous avez des allergies aussi, là. Moi, le poil, ça me fait éternuer un peu. Bye bye. My auntie there spoke a little bit of English because she smiled, and I told her there was a cat behind her, and the black cat, beautiful black and kind of whitish cat, had a little bit of a he moved away. He wasn't. But some people are allergic, so that's why you have to be careful. If they're allergic to cats, if you're a cat in public, you just sometimes I guess you even have to let people know so that if they don't have allergies, they do have allergies, you have to be aware, because if the cat just comes close and then you get allergic, see, some people have more severe allergic. I just sneezed to the length of the dogs with big fur, with the lengthy fur, you know, the fur that is thick and long, you know, thick and long, thickness of it just makes me sneeze. So I don't really go into, I just sneezing basically. I just start sneezing. It's not a big deal for me, but I just start sneezing. And here you have a little art if you want. You have a little art, and this little art which you can go and you can have. It's a bibliothèque. It's a library. Bibliothèque is of course French for library. So we're getting on Verdun here. We're getting into the Verdun area. So that is what it is with us here, and that's how we rock and roll it, and that's how we drill it, and that's of course how we preposition it about it, and that's that rock and roll, you know. So it's something which we gotta compute and we gotta redress, and I have to address, and people have to address, and that is something which of course we have to address in all the circumstantial prudences where we are, you know. That's just something where we have to be in, where we have to get appellated, you know. So Asperger's is not an illness, is not a disease. I had to correct somebody again last week who mentioned disease, and I said no, it's not a disease. It's not a disease. It's not a disease, you know. It's not a disease. Not a disease. I am not a disease. I'm not an illness. I'm not a disease. I am androgynous, pansexual, and I am, I guess, to some an abomination. But I'm also great at other things, and especially when it comes to my special interests, which happen to be sports fitness. Dancing is my favorite sport, and of course, Asperger's makes us that we have special interests, and those special interests preoccupy our daily routines, habits, sometimes with intensity, with super focus, right? And those special interests vary from individual to individual, and keep in mind that Aspies are, of course, not a lot. Not a lot. Aspies are less than 1%. Less than 1%. Less than half of a percentile. It's about 0.44%. 0.44%. 0.44%. So can you imagine the number if you, the vast majority of the population, stand at 99.56%? That means, of course, that Aspies we constitute less than 1 out of 300. Flag spotted there. Flag spotted. See, look at that flag spotted. Flag spotted. Flag spotted. That's a beautiful flag, and that's a flag spotted. Whenever I spot the flag, I gotta show my own. So whenever I spot the flag, I gotta show my own flag. See, that's the flag, flag, flag. So I got my own flag on me 24/7, and the children are happy, they are joyous. That's more important, to get on the go and getting on the go trail, and they're happy, joyous. That's what's most important, because they're innocent, you know. So they're outside playing a bit in the heart and singing a little song and saluting the youth. Gotta love our youth, eh? Otherwise, what do we serve in uniform and to defend? It's the children who are uniform and the future children of our empire. We gotta build and unite and start building those 44 city tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war. You know, in terms of a terms of a thermonuclear war. So that is, of course, all the appellation and the appellatives, what we have, of course, in the integral part of our being, that we have to work on these characteristics. Again, not symptoms. It could be clumsiness, could be one characteristic trait of aspiness, could be getting too close to people when talking in conversation, right? So an Aspie, myself included, I always have to back up sometimes. We tend to breach personal space. So these social, unwritten social norms and rules can be difficult for Aspies, right? Because of, beautiful garden there. Because of these brain differences, right? Our brain is different. And so some things we might not even not understand fully, we might not get. And due to, this can cause sometimes frustration and disappointment, and sometimes we can have these problems where we are, of course, when we are functionally different in a lot of the interactions with others, whether it be in public, in shopping, at grocery stores, or in the job space. And the problems we have encounter a lot. And once again, please, 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 it's not a disease. You have, of course, to fully comprehend and give that it's not a disease. It is just this difference, and this difference cannot be medicated because the causes itself is inconclusive, right? The cause is inconclusive. So one is not, the cause is inconclusive. The cause is inconclusive. One cannot, we are not sure what causes Asperger's, right? We're not sure. We know that it could be hereditary and that it could be biological, that is genetic factors, or it could be a combination of genetic factors, biology, genetic factors, or genetic, biological factors, genetic factors, or it could be even, of course, genetic factors, biological factors, or hereditary factors. hereditary factors. Now, since there's no sureness what it is, but it could be a combination, So of course the combination can be a combination of those factors, That's what it is with that, and that's what it is. That is something which we have to understand fully, That is something which we have to understand fully, So the appellation, of course, and the integration, which we have, of course, is to integrate the appellatives and, of course, the propositions, of course, that this difference we can build bridges, even with all these differences, right? So bridges can be built. Bridges can be built. And we have to build bridges, right? We have to build bridges. The bridges have to be built. Because myself, I don't have antagonistic feelings. I don't have antagonistic feelings. See, for example, you see here's a mental health university institute, Douglas, right? So it's not, Asperger's is not really a mental health. There could be, because I lived to being depressed and suicidal, but Asperger's, being an Aspie, you cannot medicate. There's no medication. Yes, there's some support. For me, the support is minimal. I require just basically understanding. I don't require a lot of support. But you see here is a mental health, Douglas Mental Health University Institute, right? Mental Health University Institute. So my health comes from gratitude, daily gratitude, and fitness and exercising, which is a great component of mental health. But besides that, my aspiness is not a disease. Yes, it can cause certain misunderstandings, and even according to ABC documentaries, supposedly, I'm not gonna say that I completely agree because I have to revise it, but an ABC documentary made this documentary revolving the condition known as the neurodivergent mental condition known as Asperger's as being the neurodivergent mental condition as being this neurological mental divergent condition as being an evolutionary process. Now, this is quite interesting. Of course, for me to make that jump into making that statement would be a bit indirect to say. I cannot say yes or no. I have to watch it again, and of course I have to fully understand it more in order to make a final decision, because I'm not a neuroscientist, right? I am not a neuroscientist. So thus I would say that the ABC documentary perhaps is true. Perhaps Asperger's is in fact somehow an evolutionary process. That's why there's so few people who have it, and that's why it's kind of a new condition, right? It's kind of a new condition, and that's why, of course, it's basically on 20th century, kind of a newish condition, and maybe that's why, because of this newness to it, that's why, of course, it is the more and more understood what it is in actuality, an evolutionary process, an evolutionary process in mankind's evolution. Now, of course, that is a big jump to make, a big declaration, a big statement, but it's called Asperger's. Sometimes the documentary title is by ABC. It's called, of course, Asperger's. Asperger's is the title of the documentary is by ABC. The ABC Corporation has something to do, of course, with human evolutionary process. So basically that's the premise, right? As you see here, it's a mental health institute. Douglas. But of course, Asperger's is not a disease. It's not a mental illness. It cannot be cured. there can be a support for Aspies, and myself, I require minimal support, because there's a truth that we have special interest, also known as obsessive interest, and these ritual-like routines, right? So when Aspie do these ritual-like routines, and just to finalize on the ABC's documentary, it's a big pronunciation in regards to what Asperger's is and what Asperger's is not. Because if they claim, and if that claim is supported by several scientists and individual and neuroscientists, that means that Asperger's is far from being a disease, right? To the contrary, it's an evolutionary process for our evolution somehow, right? It's possible. It's possible. I mean, all the struggles, the suffering, the pains, I would call that, well, that was a painful stage in my life for years and years and years, because I've been, told by several individuals and citizens that I have Asperger's, and of course, having been told by several individuals that I have Asperger's, who have experience in the mental health profession, in not necessarily doctors, but several who have experience in the mental health issue and in the healthcare system for years, more than 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I've been diagnosed. What a beautiful garden here. So I've been told by several sisters that I have Asperger's, but I rejected it for a long time. I rejected it. I didn't want to accept it. I said no until actually about 3.5 years ago, during COVID, 3.5 years ago. For the longest time, I didn't want to accept it, and of course, I didn't want to accept it, and until recently. So that is, of course, the domain which, of course, we have, of course, to be conclusive about. So that, of course, is where we are prepositioned in the living as a neurodivergent and somebody who's an Aspie, basically. But now we also have to face our problems, and this is something which we have to work on, because let's face it, Aspies were different, and sometimes that difference is picked up right away, right? We have 3 main problems till the end. We might focus, for example, like I said, on special details. For example, I would try to focus on those numbers there. See? Those numbers, what exactly are they? See, like the number 44 and then 008, 44, 008, and those numbers. We'll focus on details like that. See the bus, 40. So whatever all those details where we have, see those details on the bus. See that it is what it is, and that it is a Aspie trait, focusing on certain weird details, such as, for example, the number here, of course. Or details would be, for example, getting close and try to see if there's anything written there on that. Or, of course, see here, where you might see, for example, here, there's those letters. See, you can see some letters there. We might focus on those letters. Now, that might be the name of the company, so stuff like that. Or on the plates here, we might focus on the details of the numbers of these plates. See the numbers here, or these numbers. See those more numbers, stuff like that. So we might focus on small weird details like that. Small weird details. And this can be weird. If you see somebody by example, that inspects an object close to the hand, too close to the face. For example, I'll give you an example. An Aspie might, of course, take a jar or whatever, let's say these, and might look, or whatever the case, might look at an object in the store, and I do it, so close like this, to the face, look and inspect it, what's written on it, right? For example, it could be different objects. It could be a coffee, something to do with coffee. It could be coffee-esque or not coffee-esque. It could be a jar. It could be a chocolate bar. It could be soap. It could be a jar full of nuts. Whatever product on the store, right? And we would look. I would see this says, made in Canada, made in Canada, made in Canada, made in Canada, made in Canada. But we would inspect underneath it and bring it close to the eyes like that and look at those numbers there, which they have a meaning. I mean, there must be a meaning to the number L65, and then there's that C circle there, and the triangle, and then the number 11,008. See? See? So we might focus on the object for like inspect it for a minute or so, whatever the case, how many time limit. Of course, I'm just saying a minute could be 40 seconds, 44 seconds, right? 50 seconds, whatever. And that might be an Aspie doing that, and I know because I do it. So that you might see somebody doing that in the store. You might know that's somebody with Asperger's who is neurodivergent, who's different, and if in the workplace you see somebody doing that weirdly for like a minute, that might be an Aspie, and this might be weird, This might be weird, That might be weird. That might be weird, and we Aspies have to be told more directly, because we just certain things we just don't. The social norms are difficult for us to comprehend, So we have three main problems, Three main problems. The three main problems. Of course, the order of these three problems more are variable, so they vary in consequence to different aspects. But the general problems which majority of Aspies encounter are these. So I'm gonna enumerate them. So look at this, beautiful. One is the lack. Another Aspie trait now. Okay, so this is an Aspie demonstration one-on-one. So see how my Aspie brain works, and if I would be with a fellow Aspie, we would actually probably discuss it. Now my mind goes a bit mathematical, so I'm trying to calculate the proportion of these. See the tiles, there are three colors, right? So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 on each side, 1, 2, 3, 4, but you see is black, white, and beige, and then you have black, beige, and white, white, black, and beige, white. I would try to figure out which one is the most. Try to figure out. See, for example, you have whites. How many whites? How many beige? It's of course more whites and black, and then less beige. So that mathematical answer to me is obvious, but to somebody else might not be that obvious. But to me, because I calculated in the hand, see, for example, how many white? 1, 2, 3 white, 1 black, 1 beige, 2 whites, 4 whites, 2 whites, 1 black, 1 beige. But mathematics. See, so if you calculate this, you see that answer popped right away in my head. And don't even ask me really how the calculation came about. It's just, so I kind of did a few, and then I calculated that the pattern kind of follows. So I calculated 4, right? So basically, if you calculate 4, but you have to also be aware, because it's not co-equivalent, the pattern. You see, there's a variation. But for the most part, each line has at least 2 whites, although 4 whites, see, 2 whites, see, if you see what I mean. So, although this one's 2 black, but the majority of each line, although these are equal, black and white, but the beige are less. See, the beige are less, right? You see mathematically what I mean? The beige are less. So there's less beige, there's more, the most are the white ones, after come the black ones, and after come the beige ones. See, so it's just mathematics, right? But the numbers popped in my head. For example, the ratio 4, 6, 7, 8, and then 4 and 3 on that different tile, right? So you see here, for example, we start from here. You see, you got 3 whites, 1 beige, 3 whites, 1 black. Then you got different ones, but the majority. So that's basically the most are the white ones, then the black ones, then the beige ones. That's just the proportion, the ratio, and then you can go deeper into mathematics, and there's an exact ratio which you can find for every 1 black there's 3 white, right? And for every 4 whites there's 1 beige. So that might actually be the exact ratio. I don't know how I did that, but that actually might be the exact ratio. So there's 3 whites for 1 black, and there's 4 whites for 1 beige. That might actually be the ratio. But then the ratio for the black and the beige together, that is, of course, there's one black for two beige, right? But it could be fractions also. So now we go deeper, and this is just ASPE. We could with an ASPE, we would have probably just tried to figure that one out mathematically. If I would have been with an ASPE there, would have probably took a few minutes, and would have probably even take a pen. Let's do the calculations, right? Because that's just Asperger's, you know. That's just one-on-one how it manifests and how our brains look at things, right? Sometimes in a more mathematical way with ratios, percentages, dynamics, and of course there's also percentage, right? Because the total percentage number is for all the black and the beige and the white. Look, they're gonna do a little bit of that. Good. Look at that. Good for you. Hey, I think we should descend and go by the side. What do you say? Go a little bit in the wilderness? Yeah, let's go a little bit in the wilderness. But that is something which, of course, you gotta be careful here by the river. See, Montreal, Hawk Island, surrounded by this big river. There we got a little bit of those going on, a little bit of that prudence. And yeah, so there's the whole percentage is the whole amount of tiles, right? And they all include the white, the black, and the beige. Now, of course, I would say that, you know, well, if you have 60% which are white, then you have 30% which are black, and then you might have, of course, the percentage which are, of course, another color, you know. So that is just the percentage, right? That is just a percentage. So the percentage might vary, right? It might vary, but I would estimate that it's 60. I would say 65% are white, 25 are black, and then the remain 25 and 60, that's 90, and 10% are beige. That would be my, remember when we got those sweets here? It was so sweet, but now they're gone. But next year we're gonna come and we're gonna have a feast here, because now it's a bit more difficult to pass, see, as it gets down the summer, but because we got more green space and a lot of green came on, and we don't mind it, because we are that all terrain. But yeah, that is just ASPE characteristic. So it's not a disease, it's a mental divergent condition, and it just makes us just prone to these awkward, weird, socially more even, you know, I'm not gonna say use the word disability, but we're less able in social matters sometimes. We gotta be told more directly, and we have to be consequentially and prudently, of course, in the aspects where we have and where we interact to be, you know, all the prepositions and the love affairs where we got, and gotta give it for the love and gotta give it for the now. But it's something which we have to be lovingly so, because I want love, and especially a massage therapy session. I wish I could afford one, but I can afford to take a bath, so I'm grateful for that. Taking a bath always helps, and always embellishing a little bit my qualities. And when I come here, I always feel a bit joyous to traverse, and I'm just gonna pass to the side. Ah, merci. On va passer par ici, comme ça. Une bonne bière. T'en en prends de temps en temps. Salut. Toi aussi, pareil. Gotta give it a little bit of that, and my cousin there having a beer and enjoying his stay, and just be safe. Don't go in the river. You know, having a little good one. It's hot, but you just gotta watch out for each other. You know. I don't drink much. Actually, I don't drink at all. Hey, look. I have a beer. I have to drink it. It's for the union. It's union-made, labor-made. I have to drink it. It was given to me a long time ago. So hey, somebody made some good. See, here you can dip. Next time we'll come and dip here. You know what? Next time we'll come and just stay in water there when it's sun. Maybe tomorrow morning. Maybe we're gonna come dip right there. We're gonna try to come tomorrow morning, and then maybe go to the mountain, or we'll go to the mountain tomorrow and come Thursday. But see, somebody built kind of forts. That's nice with the rocks, and you can see how kind of it goes. So here you're protected now, but only within that space. See, within the space where the rocks are and those are, just within those spaces, not further down. not further. So don't further yourself more in depth with that, but you got to stay within those confines. See, within that confine, and there I guess you can dip there and you can, yeah, perfect. Somebody built it. See, 1, 2, 3, and then the fourth one is the protective here. So just stay within here. You're protected by the rocks, and here, just within this area. That's good. You're safe here, but stay within this area, right? If you come, don't go neither by that way, neither by that way, and it's perfect how it's done. The water, fresh water enters there, and fresh water goes there. And of course, this is the big river surrounding Montreal, Hawk Island, HAWK, Hawk Island. Every day, that's how we do, and that's how we gotta get that hawk here, you know. Sometimes we gotta get on that HAWK, and we gotta get on that go, and yeah, that's Asperger's, you know, this neurological mental divergent condition, which makes us more weird and bizarre and awkward. And you got some of my fellow citizens there on that board there by the rocks, and they're taking it a little bit on that slow side, you know. Gotta give it on the go and on the marine land, and it's always something fun to see. You can see a little bit of the resort. Kind of looks a bit like it's a marine resort, and it's by the ocean, although this is a river, but it kind of seems like it's on by the ocean, but it's river-esque, and you got these beautiful flowers here, so it's a lot to explore, eh? Montreal, Island of the Hawk, our headquarters of our coming empire, pledge allegiance, legions. So to finalize on Asperger's, not a mental illness, not a disease. I corrected last week somebody. I was going to correct anybody who's going to mention the word disease. It's no. It is a neurological mental divergent condition, and it makes us Aspies predisposed to special interest, and those special interests, of course, are what we do basically on a daily level, sometimes with intensity, sometimes with super focus, sometimes with super dedication, fortunately to the detriment of other things. So that's where the problem can lie, because due to these special interests, we have these special routines, ritual-like routines. So these ritual-like routines preoccupy our whole daily activities, our whole daily lives. Our whole lives are usually preoccupied, revolving around those special interests, whence of course those special interests are, and when of course those special interests are involved, that is of course the domain which we have to appellate and conjugate, and of course be on the motive to of course understand and fully participate and fully be immersed in all of course the circumstances where we are involved with daily activities and daily lives. And unfortunately those special interests can be to the detriment of other things, whether social life, other aspects can be impeding because those special interests, or aka obsessive interests, but I don't use the word obsessive. This is powerful here. I don't use the word obsessive. Can be to the detriment of other things of life. But I can also, they're a source of joy, a source of kind of security, a source of wellness, a source of well-being to fellow Aspies, and of course to the point that we can excel at those special interests when we are involved in them. We can be quite excellent and excel and be quite good and make remarkable contributions in that field, that areas of learning, studies, whatever it is, that are our special interests. And unfortunately, again, sometimes those special interests preoccupy so much of our daily routines, habits with intensity, super focus, super concentration, and engagement and dedication that we neglect other things. So there's where myself, I need a little bit of support, because I have this ritual-like routine. You know, I work out, train, exercise, I do rock and roll, and of course, what is that? I do rock and roll, I stretch, and I do that rock and roll. do geopolitics, the study, the analysis. I'm an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, thinker, and strategist, and I do develop geopolitical strategies for the North American Collective, where we are, of course, in the situational awareness, where we are, of course, to be, and we have, of course, to understand fully the dimensional aspects of our daily life and capabilities where we exist, in the dynamics, of course, of the circumstance, and that's just how we are and how we be. And that is something where we have to be done. That's something we have to be. So this is the true, or rather, where the problem can occur. Where the problem can occur is that these special interests can take so much time and effort daily that we neglect other things. So some aspects requires more support than others. And my special interests are geopolitics, 24/7, sports and fitness. Dancing is my favorite sport. Here too is a place where you can dip, but gotta be careful. You can't dip too much, and that's just what we have to be doing, and have to be understanding, of course, that we are consequently, of course, in a danger zone when it comes to the river, and that danger zone, of course, is proponent to the river being close, and we have, of course, to get close on the river by the side where we are, of course, interjecting to be, and to, of course, be the simulacrum of all our engagements and all our societal appellations where we are now involved with our activities. So now we have, of course, to understand fully where we are and how our position is, and how we are different, and how we are different from you, the 99.56%, by these more weird, odd social traits, social characteristics, social traits, and social characteristics where we are not so good at, while we are good at other things. And sometimes we can offend because we might say things directly without any filter, kind of no filter, maybe. I guess, yeah. And not that we mean to offend, but it's, of course, because our brains are different, and because we have these mutations of the brains, we have to be told more directly ourselves. If I offend you, you have to let me know, because sometimes I might not even know. That's pretty nice, how it is. So I might not know, of course, that I offend in the circumstantial position that I might offend, but I wish I had a little bit of color with that. That would be nice. I might not even know necessarily that I offend without knowing. So now the three problems for Aspies. We have three problems which affect the majority of Aspies, generally more or less other Aspies than some. So one, lack of friends. We have trouble, myself including, maintaining long-term friendship, maintaining long-term employment, maintaining friendships, because of how we are, how we express ourselves. Is sometimes we express ourselves differently and in a way which can seem more bizarre, awkward, than at other times. In comparison with the neurotypicals, you the 99.56%, with the neurotypicals, the 99.56%. And it's something which you have to understand fully, and in all the positions where we are, of course, consequently, that is something where we are, of course, to do and to operate, and of course to conjugate in our situation, so that is something which we have to get doing with that, and something which you got to get out. illusions, And of course, that is the true aspect of sometimes we just say things without a filter, or not that we mean to offend, not that we mean to offend, because it's not we don't mean to offend necessarily, but we have these variations of our brain where we see the world differently. So I guess the problem is, of course, high unemployment. It stands at 80%. 80% unemployment. Can you imagine? 80%, that's 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5. That's a lot. 4 out of 5. 80% unemployment, that is a lot. 80%. 80+% of Aspies are unemployed. That's 11 times. That's 11 times higher than the neurotypicals. So for every you, there's 11 of us, and we are 0.44%. Another one, high one, and this could be also problematic, high depression and suicidal rates. I lived there, I was depressed, I was suicidal, and what got me out of depression, actually celebrating 8 years today, 2017, August, cross Canada, coast to coast, and driving cross Canada, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. That is, of course, when I cross Canada, coast to coast. That is, of course, when I cross Canada with my anonymous friend, and that's when I established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians, North Americans, brothers and sisters in the USA. It's always something which, of course, got to get done. And I served in the United States. I believe in reincarnations, and in different past lives incarnations. I lived in the United States 3 times. I was born post 70-76, once as a woman, twice as a man. When I was born as a man, I served in the United States Armed Forces twice served in the United States Armed Forces twice, post 70-76, 156 years apart. The wars were 156 years apart. 156 years apart, That's 2 different wars there. And I'm just gonna go check out that garden, because I love gardens, especially yellow flowers, so I'm gonna go check it out. But you gotta read George Patton's Through a Glass Darkly if you want to get a little bit of acquainted. He didn't mention that he was my wife once. I was his wife in a past life, and he was my wife, I was his wife, vice versa, 2,600 years ago. And his poem, George Patton, the general, his poem Through a Glass Darkly, yeah. His poem Through a Glass Darkly is one of my favorites. Oh yeah, look at this. Thank you, public workers. Corridor écologique. You got a hotel for insects. I never seen that before. Hotel à insectes. That's French. Hotel à insectes. Hotel for insects. Hotel. Un hôtel pour les insectes. That's the hotel for insects. And that's really beautiful here. And I really love it here. Oh, I can't believe it. I never seen that. Hotel for insects. Look at that. Hotel à insectes. Hotel à insectes. Never seen that before. And that's nice. I really love it, Ah, yeah. I really love this one. Hotel à insectes. I never seen anything like that before. I really love these ones as well. They're so nice. And thank you. I don't have a bigger garden like this at home, but I gotta get on that drill for that, and that's what we gotta get doing on that XYZ, to be endlessly on one side or another side. But another, what is that? Abri à papillon. No, that's of course for the butterflies. Abri à papillon. See? Abri is like a house, like a shelter. Abri is like a shelter. Abri. Papillon is of course the butterflies. So that's kind of good with that, and kind of good to go. And that's what we have to get doing with that, and we gotta get doing on that go. So yeah, that's how we live the public, well embellished with the gardens. Rock and roll, the heavens. Gotta love it, a little bit of that rock and roll, man. That's what we have to do. And Yeah, I love these ones as well. But hey, I never seen that before. A little hotel for the insects. I guess only in Montreal, only in Quebec, Montreal. Yeah. That's how we gotta get doing with that. So I gotta get doing like that, yeah. So we gotta get that drilling, man, for that rock and roll on the go, and so we have to get doing on that drill. So that's the problems, 3 problems. Aspies, we lack a lot of friends. We don't have a lot of friends. That's why for me the solution, friends with benefits only. I don't want to waste your time, don't waste mine. It's as simple as that. Friends with benefits only. You want to rock and roll, you're black, you're white. You're a man, you're a woman. You're a man, you're a woman, you're black, you're white. You're a man, you're a woman, you're black, you're white. That's it. You're a man, you're a woman, you're black, you're white. That's it. You don't have to, just don't have to. You don't have to be friends. It's just friends with benefits only. My imperial individual self, or pledge your allegiance. Either that or pledge your allegiance. Pledge your allegiance, then that's how we roll. Besides that, we're gonna pledge your allegiance for our coming of our empire, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, because fundamentally it's all part of my work. Individual, artistic, geopolitical work. And I've been depressed, been suicidal. What got me out of depression and being suicidal, of course, what got me out of depression and being suicidal was, of course, crossing Canada coast to coast, ocean to ocean. That is what got me out of depression. Besides, 2017, August, basically that's what it was. In August 2017, across Canada coast to coast. And of course in September, went to Halifax. First in August went in BC, British Columbia, Vancouver, and then of course we went in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Yeah, so cross Canada coast to coast, summer 2017, 8 years ago, celebrating that part, celebrating that life, celebrating that victory. When I got out of depression, I established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians, who I consider family, and of course all who come to join us, all who come to join us here in the coming of our empire. And friends with benefits only for me from now on. Don't want to waste your time, don't waste mine. You're 18 plus of age, black or white or black, man or woman. We can get a little bit of that rock and roll, and that's just how we are and how we drill it. And it's something which we have, of course, to appellate, and we have, of course, to be conclusive about, and we have, of course, to get that rock and rolling always. That's what it is, and that's what it is with that, and just that's it, and that's what it is for that. And that's something which we gotta get that rock and rolling, 24/7 for the firefighters, for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, all those involved in the production, distribution of food. That's what we gotta get on that drill. And always for those, of course, who are involved in that distribution of food, for the pantry workers, for the daycare workers changing some diapers, construction workers going up and down across the 63, the truckers, those switching, doing some of that cheeseburger work, hamburger work, serving those fries, serving that coffee, doing that restaurant work. I wouldn't last a day in fast food, to be honest. Probably too clumsy, I'd be messing it up. But I'm good at other things, Get that priestess kisses, DGA, Dancing Goddess Army, to do some other work what we have to do. And that is, of course, just the appellation, of course, of all our integrative aspects. And now I'm going to get into geopolitics now, because that's where my field, where my domain is. And that's what it is, lad. And that's what it is, and that's what we have to get doing on that. So that's what I know, and that's what it is, and that's what it is with that, So basically, we're going to start with me going back in time a bit. In 2019, October, November, I have predicted what's happening now. You heard that right? I even have the proof of work. I predicted what's happening now back in 2019, October, November. October, November. October, November. October, November. In October, November. In October, November 2019. In October, November 2019, I have predicted it. What's happening now? October, November 2019. I have predicted that there's going to be an international, global World War III type of scenario conflagration, and it's been happening. If you notice what's been happening, it is exactly the conflagration where it is. That's been happening now. Of course, it's pas pire, là? Ah, vous êtes rentré dedans en full corps?
Ouais, je fais la natation au pied.
Ah ouais, il n'y a pas trop de pierres, trop de roches,
Ici, il y a quelques pierres.
c'est sécure, là, pour rentrer, pour la neige, ok. Ok, c'est bon à savoir, là.
Ça fait longtemps que je fais la natation.
Ah ouais, je vais venir moi aussi à un moment donné. Je savais pas que c'était ici, hein, une belle place. Ok, parfait.
C'est ça, je disais, je parlais avec les gens, je dis c'est un endroit tranquille.
Ouais.
Il me dit, faut pas dire au monde qu'il y a une place pour nager, puis sinon ça va devenir la plage c'est l'enfer là-bas.
Ok.
Mais ici, je vais faire la natation, je sors.
Ouais.
La famille fait des pique-niques, mais il n'y a pas beaucoup de barbecue l'été.
Ah, ok.
T'es-tu du coin?
Notre-Dame-de-Grâce.
ND?
NDG, yeah, NDG.
What are you doing down here?
I like to come by the river, you know, by the river, just working out, training, exercising. I'm doing my exercise. I come often here. I just didn't see anybody ever swim here. I saw people fish, so I was wondering because I'm concerned about the toes. The only concern, you know, because I would love to swim.
No, it's just like little rocks on the shore, and it gets deep, like within 6 feet.
Yeah.
The shoreline. Go straight down to the buoys. I turn
Oh,
around,
yeah?
come back.
Where you go? All the way there?
Red buoys out there.
Oh, nice. Oh, I see blurred because my vision is not
So
that
it's
great.
all the way at the point.
Okay.
I do a lap, and I'm building up to maybe 3 laps around it.
Wow, so that's a good sport. All right. I have Asperger's, eh? So I'm a bit, you know what Asperger's is?
I heard, what is it exactly?
You don't know, eh? Not a lot of people know. So I have this neurodivergent condition. Social communication sometimes can be more difficult for Aspies. Sometimes we get too close, you know, stuff like that. We don't understand fully the non-written social rules and etiquettes.
So how are you doing today?
I'm financially stressed, but besides that, I'm okay.
Okay, you got a smile, you know?
Yeah, I'm pretty joyous. I'm pretty joyous.
You have to.
I'm pretty joyous. It's Asperger's. Not a lot of people know what it is because it's very rare, you know. So sometimes we just say things directly. Not that we mean to offend, but you know, it's more. We have to be told directly.
I think we should be more direct. Too often we bite our tongues. We don't tell people, hey, you know, smarten up, buddy.
No, it's yeah. How can I explain it? It's not common. So we have mutations of the brain, right? So these mutations, we look at the world differently, through a different lens. So social communications can be more difficult, you know.
But you're not a shy man.
It's not shyness necessarily. It's just because how we discuss, you know.
Okay.
So we can be weird, awkward. We don't have a lot of friends. I actually don't have many friends at all, you know.
It's not the number, it's the quality of the ones you do have.
I guess.
1 or 2.
Yeah.
It's not Facebook where you're looking for 1,000 friends you don't even
Yeah.
know anybody.
I'm only looking for friends with benefits, to be honest. You know, just friends with benefits. Like I can do you some service. I can then, yeah, you know, stuff like that. Like that's all I'm looking for. You know, I work out, I train, massage buddies. You know, that's it. That's all.
Cool. Well, it's here for you.
All right.
Yep.
And that's it. That's about how we are. You know.
All right. I'll look it up and inform myself.
Asperger's, yeah. Asperger's. Aspergers. Asperger's.
Okay.
It's not common.
You know what I heard?
Yeah.
It's something to do with like a neurological like shakes or something.
It's a neurological condition. Yeah, we can have repetitive body movements, so we could have certain mannerisms which are awkward, you know. it has to do with the brain, but it's not a disease. It's just mutations, and there's no medication, and even the cause is not well known.
You mentioned massage. Are you a therapist?
No,
No?
no, I'm not. If I could afford one, I would definitely go often because I work out a lot, stay in shape. How about you?
Former massage therapist.
No way.
Yeah, I
Wow.
practiced 15 years when I was
No way.
searching for my career when I was a lot younger, and now I'm an electrician.
Electrician rock, man. You know the ACDCs and
Yeah, it's sometimes rocket science for me at times, you know, like there's all level of knowledge in the field, so
oh wow,
when I
man.
speak with some guys who have this knowledge, it's like, oh my God, you're speaking a different language to me, you know?
Oh yeah, well, you use it every day, eh? I always turn my light on when I take the shower, so I use it every day.
My alarm wakes me up.
I use it. That's sometimes electricians you can go without. You use it every day.
Yeah,
At least most of us, unless you live somewhere else. But
yeah.
all right, buddy. Adrian, by the way,
Hi, Adrian. My name's Craig.
can you live around here?
Yeah, not too far.
Okay. Well, if I see you around, and you let me know. And
Cool, cool.
you still do massage?
No, I miss it though from time to time. I did it for 15 years, practiced a lot, I studied a lot as well,
Yeah.
and I don't know, I just lost the passion for it, just lost it. And plus I noticed that, I can't say that I was aging out of it, but you know, the younger crowd coming up behind me, and I'm like, it's good, you know, yeah, it's admirable what the
Younger crowd, eh?
I used to have with that, you know? So it's like a football player, you know, you got to retire, and I felt like it's time for the next generation.
I understand. I understand.
Time for the next generation, step aside and develop.
You're a millennial? You're Gen Boomer?
I'm 51, so I don't know what generation I belong to.
Millennial starts in 1980s. 1981, 1980. 1980 till 1996.
How old are
You're
you?
before.
How old are you?
40.
40.
Yeah, 40.
I
40. All right.
Okay.
Bye.
I like the tattoo.
Which one? The freedom?
Oh, I think I saw a woman up there.
Yeah, it's supposed to represent a goddess. I got Canada here. Canada, Canada, Canada. Guess you got none?
Nah, I think about it, but no, so far,
Yeah.
just scars.
I just scars. Just scars are scars also. I don't remember getting them though. Must have been decades ago. I don't remember getting them. Must have been 20 years ago, man.
That's cool. I sometimes ask, I'm like, when people have tattoos all over, Brian, do you even know you have them? Like, because it's your skin, you don't even see it. You know? I guess in the beginning, you're like, you know, like, and then all of a sudden it's just, oh yeah, I have a tattoo.
Yeah, you get inked and that's it. Some people do it for different reasons. All right.
All the best, buddy.
See you, buddy. Ciao, ciao. So that was a little rock and roll. I forgot to mention about I wasn't pointing the camera on my fellow citizen. I forgot to pause it. I was pausing just that wanting to enter the conversation. If it's because I didn't see anybody swim here, so that's never see anybody swim here, you know. So I passed by the side here, you know. That's it, and that's what it is, and that's what we got, and that's what we gotta get drawing on that drill, you know, to get it on the left and on the right and in the Z, and all those who are now involved in the production, distribution of food, and all, of course, those who gotta get it on their drills, you know, for this. It's nice, you know. It's nice that somebody enjoys swimming, you know, and to go, and that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing sometimes, you know. And he's a fellow citizen, and here, you know, it's something which it's a good place to swim, I guess. If you want to swim, I didn't know. I saw people. I entered the conversation. I see my fellow citizen didn't know what Asperger's is. I thought I stopped the video, but I thought I pressed pause. I didn't, because whatever, it's in the public, and I just forgot to mention, but I guess the camera wasn't on my fellow family member here, a great family in North America, but great person, I guess, superficially for I know. And See, I told this fellow citizen about Asperger's, and he didn't know what it was. He didn't know. Electricians rock, though. Said I use it every day, eh? We'll use it every day, and thank you to the electricians of the North American Collective, to the bakers, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians. They'll switch in some cheeseburgers, hamburgers for the fast food. And I told him what about being an Asperger's, and he didn't know. See, so it's not common. Not a lot of people know what Asperger's is. It's a rare condition. It's not well known. It's not common, you know. So back to geopolitics. Now you're gonna need to leave the baggage at the door, and of course focus on geopolitics, and focus, of course, on geopolitics. 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 Bag at the door, leave the package at the door. When we have certain prior knowledge or other things, we have to sometimes to get fresh new information and new knowledge and new discoveries in certain worlds, which perhaps we don't know much about, myself included. If I would have discussed about Elec, he's an electrician, so to discuss electronics and electrics, I would have discussed more with him than with others, and he would have taught me electricity and as an electrician, and me as an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, philosopher, thinker, and geopolitical strategist. So back in 2019, October, November, I predicted what's happening now. So I predicted what's happening now back, of course, in 2019. In October, November 2019, I have predicted what's happening now. 2019, in October 2019. I predicted it in a general manner. However, what I did not predict, I did not predict that there was going to be a deterioration of relations with the U.S. So that I did not predict. I predicted that there was going to be a World War III type of situation, international conflagration, but I did not predict that there's going to be, that's beautiful, 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 the deterioration as we have now with the United States. Right, so in this statement, which I'm going to say again, as I say it in all videos, you have to, of course, accord it and say yes, 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 yes to it. You cannot negate it. You cannot negate it. You cannot say no to it. You cannot even say maybe, because it is so. It is a geopolitical and reality of our geopolitical realities as a North American civilizational complex, of which Canada and the United States we constitute a geopolitical complex which is not totally divorced, but is distinct from Western civilization. It is not divorced, but is distinct from Western civilization. So that is, of course, the complement, and that you have to accord it in the positive by utterly saying the statement and affirming what I will say now. Our main interest when it comes to foreign affairs, not domestic internal affairs, as Canadians, Quebecers, Canadians, and as vice versa for my brothers and sisters in the USA, is we must have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial, political, diplomatic, defense relations with each other. Point. You have to say yes to that. That is also from the perspective of the United States, my brothers and sisters in the United States. That is just the constant. The constant. Just like the pi symbol, which is represented by an N, the letter N for normal, neurodivergent, natural, neuroscience, or Normandy. That N, which represents the relations, the relationship with the circle, the circumference of the circle with the ratio of the circumference of the circle, that relationship is always a number. 3.14, 15, 16 is the ratio relation to the diameter, the circumference of the circle. Of the circle. Of the circle. That is always so. It is a non-changing, it doesn't change, it is always a constant. It's constant as opposed to a variable, right, mathematically. So that is a constant, it doesn't change, it is so. Doesn't change, it is so. That's why we have to say yes to them. So it's a non-negotiable. 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 You have to say yes to that. The United States also has to have the best, most cordial economic, social, political, cultural, diplomatic, military relations vis-a-vis us, towards us, right? That is just, of course, the prepositions where we have, the prepositions where we are in the whole dynamic. So that dynamic doesn't change. It has been so at least for 75 years since the dissolution of the British Empire. It is so today, and it will be so at least, I guess, that we proposition to finance or to enlarge and to have, of course, a world federation in the abstract sense. That's the possibility that it changes if we have a world federation without the nation states as we have them today, or the geopolitical divisions as we have today, which of course they have now accelerated, right? The hegemonic world, which of course has ended in the past years, and that's what Russia, China strives to do. All the peace with Ukraine, I hope there's going to be a resolution, but again, I'm not on the ground to see on the ground what's exactly happening on the ground with 300 men and women, and to assess all the conflicts. I know their history, I know the ideologies, I know the philosophies, but fundamentally, I remain a Quebecer, Canadian, North American in essence, right? Fundamentally. So as much as I know their conflicts, I cannot pronounce myself fully, integrally, of course, but just some knowledge that I do possess, that is going to be some limitations, right? I will have some limitations nonetheless, because I'm a Canadian, North American. Sure, my reincarnations, past lives, I was born in the USA 3 times post 70-76, served in 2 different wars, 156 years apart, the wars war, but fundamentally I'm a North American. So I will have a certain lack of present day modern experience and knowledge when dealing with those. And this is another park here, which is nice, you know. It's not a park, but it's really something which we have, of course, to be here. And this is, you can do a little bit of that, pull-ups here. Maybe we should do some pull-ups here. Oh no, you know what I'm gonna do now? I'm gonna do here. One, before we proceed. I guess this is a nice one. See, you here, what you can do. Yeah, pretty cool. How heavy is that? And I've got these bars here. Kind of nice workout. See, it's nice. Thank you, public workers. This I can use a little bit of that rock and roll with it and drill, and that's always fun. Always fun to have, you know, around, and I appreciate it. And just my hands are clean. I don't need to disinfect, but when I get back home, I'm gonna get that disinfected with it. And that's what we're gonna do, a little bit of that disinfected. That's what we're gonna drill, of course, to disinfect, and of course, to do it on the go. And that is, of course, something which we're gonna appellate, and of course, we're gonna do on that go with the right and the left, and that's what we're gonna get right there to get on the clap, man. See, look at those. Of course, that is fundamentally where, of course, we appellate, and of course, we do some push-ups, some hawks, some squats, wherever we can do. I'm back to geopolitics. Rock and roll 24/7 with the geopolitics. Leave the baggage at the door. See how this is different? It's kind of nice. Yeah, kind of nice here by the water. If you look, the poles are different. I love it, I love it, I love it. So you can admire. So leave the baggage at the door. Our main interest when it comes to foreign affairs, I'm not speaking about domestic internal affairs. Look, so nice. Oh yeah, man, freaking nice. See, you discover new things every day. Sometimes this great Montreal metropolis, Hawk Island, and of course, that is just something which we have to do. So our main interest is to have the best, most cordial relations with our brothers and sisters in the USA. And the USA reciprocally towards us have the same interest. Economically, financially, social, culturally, sports like at all levels, they must work to have the best cordial relations with us. And this is beautiful. And it kind of feels good, see? Wow. It's actually rocks and it's so nice. Good thinking. I just love it. Creatively, something which we have to get doing with that. Something which we gotta get doing like that. There was something which we have to get doing on that, and we gotta get on that drill, man. Gotta get on that drill, and here's another one, you know. Look at that. See, wow, that's really nice. And that's all we have, and that's all we have to get doing with that, and that's all we have to get doing on that drill, you know. Something which we have to get doing, you know. It's something which we gotta get drilling with that, you know. On the left and on the right and in the middle, and that's how we have to get appellated. See, look at that. Oh yeah, it's nice. Good for you. Have a love and have a right and the left and the right and in the middle, and something which we have to do, man, you know. Yeah. So our main interest is, I'm speaking about a priority here. As a number one priority should be for us to have the best, most cordial relations with the United States. There's no way around that fact, right? There's just, you cannot argue with it. It's a constant. It's a constant, it's a constant, it's a constant, it's a constant. It does not change. It has been so, is so, and will be so. Oh, these are the Quebec. So these are the regions of Quebec that you see there. Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, the Quebec, Bay James, Estrie, Quebec. Yeah, these are Outaouais, the 7 Hommage aux forces vitales du Québec. Hommage aux forces vitales du Québec, ouais. C'est ça que c'est. So this is, of course, 1987. But now there's it says here, now 17, and now it says 18 there, regions. So now, hommage au dynamisme du peuple québécois, ça concrète. This monument pays homage to the vitality of the Québécois people, of which myself I'm part of, you know. Projet vers les 18 régions, un moment précis par l'explosion, tu sais. Contenant un hologramme illustrant une colonne, provoqué par une colonne énergétique, provoqué par une colonne énergétique, le Saint-Laurent, et artère vitale du Québec, dynamisme du peuple québécois. Yeah, the dynamism. And yes, we're dynamic people. Eh? We're just very picky about. We're strange when it comes to the French language. We're like bees, you know. Like when it comes to the French language, then we become like wasps. Bees become wasps, you know. So we love our French language. That's the only thing. We wouldn't. A lot of Quebecers wouldn't even mind to be part of the United States, myself included, but not the way that just the United States, but a new collective civilizational complex to get rid on that. The empire. What we're gonna have to do, Quebec is gonna be an integral part, a major dynamic part of our empire, with a contribution of the French language, which we're gonna continue, you know. Which we're gonna continue, you know, something which we have to be doing with and have to be doing on that. So here I'm gonna hydrate a bit. I'll wait a bit for the water to clear. Just a few seconds. And this is a nice washroom here. It's free now. Washroom is free, but it's got a lot of webs. It needs to be clean, but leave the spiders alone, eh? The spiders are holy, but I love this public toilet. It's really nice. It's really electronic, that's why I hope there's no major now graffitied up or if you have some talent, but not even because it's so nice. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That is something which I appreciate, eh? So that is just the fundamental aspects of our principal interest that we must position. So whether you're on the right, on the left, in the center, not center right, center left, of course. Of course, those are the five main. I'm not discussing far left and far right here. So no, if you're right, on the right, not far right. If you're on the left, not far left. And if you're in the center or center left, center right, between those five. We, any politician, must place the first interest, when it comes to foreign affairs, our first primordial principle interest, that is the hierarchy of interest. When we have an interest, is to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial relations with the United States, because the principle and the motives, the reason is our geographical, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. We got two oceans because of our geographical points, of our geography, Atlantic and the Pacific and the Atlantic, the Atlantic and the Pacific and the Atlantic. We got that coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. We got that coast to coast, ocean to ocean. You know, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. That it is, and that is that, you know. That is, and that is that. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean, right? And our common historical and common future destiny. Common future destiny. No, man, the Russia. That is just a concrete example. And it's not just an example, but it is a reality which we cannot be divorced from. It's a constant. Again, it's not a variable that is going to change. And it's not a variable that changed. So think about it again, like I said, the pi symbol, which represents that number, which is the constant, which always represents the ratio between the circumference or the center. And it never changes. And that is the relation with the circle, the diameter in the circle, the 3.1415. So that you have to fully implement, fully integrate in your psyche. That's why our coming empire, the fusion of the 10, the 50, and the 3 for the 63 Imperium, will have that two-headed type of end, because that's the symbol which represents the pi number. It has like two heads, two faces. That's why our empire will be one for a head for benevolent, the other head to punish. One for benevolent, the other one to punish. One for benevolent, the other one to punish. So that is, of course, the remissive and where we have to situate ourselves. Now I will to turn out to another topic of discussion, which is, of course, the DRT, the debt refusion theory. So again, that is a constant that we must place as a priority when it comes to foreign affairs, with whom we must have the best economic, social, financial, diplomatic, military, defense, security relations with. It is with the United States. There's no way around that. That is always a constant. So now get back to the DRT, the debt refusion theory. DRT, debt refusion theory. This is my theory, which it's a paradox, but can save us from the great problems which we are facing today. The four main economic problems which we are facing today are the majority of Canadians and my brothers and sisters in the USA. That's why my DRT standing for debt refusion theory, which in my theory of course integrates monetary integration theory. MIT monetary integration theory is integrated in my DRT, in the debt refusion theory is integrated monetary integration theory. So of course, the monetary integration theory is of course the theory which was implemented in the European Union in the 90s. The Germans, Germany, Italy, Belgium, France, other countries, they destroyed their national central banks, right? They destroyed both their national central banks and their respective national currencies. They have a multinational central bank. They no longer have national central banks like before. And they have a common currency, right? The countries together. So that is something which is super important to keep in mind when I discuss it. And we have to implement it, Canada, United States, binationally, because both Canada and United States, we suffer from the four main economic, financial, commercial problems which Canadians also suffer from, and which my brothers and sisters in the United States also suffer from. Those same problems in whatever order, which I'm going to discuss them and enumerate them. So inside, integrated in my DRT, debt refusion theory, is integrated the MIT monetary integration theory. That is an important aspect which you must fully accord and fully comprehend. Fully also comprehend from all the perspectives. So that comprehension has to be, of course, put into action and practice, because on the table the DRT is part, of course, also of my. Isn't that house beautiful? I wish I could get my anonymous friend a house right here somewhere, by the river right here, or further down west. We're going west now. We're marching west now. That's south, the river south, and that's pointing north. So we're going west and then back north. But a house here for my anonymous friend would be nice. So the DRT on the table for the empire, it's part of my integral bipolar geopolitical strategy for total BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion of the world, via the fusion of Canada and United States into the Imperial Republic complex, into the Imperial Republican complex. That is just something which we have to do, into the Imperial Republican complex. And that's something which we have to do in the understanding, of course, the plurality of which we have. Consequently, that we have, of course, the appellation of where we are integrally to be. And, of course, to fully understand that it is something which we have to solve. And Granddaddy Trump, I would have voted for Biden or Kamala, but it's not the way to invite us. But I'm also worried, and I gotta say, because since August 1st, Canada is designated as an extraordinary threat. An extraordinary threat. Canada is designated as an extraordinary threat. An extraordinary threat. Canada is now, since the 1st of August, designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat. It gives me goosebumps. And now more and more I'm thinking that this fentanyl doesn't make sense. I don't think I classify fentanyl as a drug anymore. More and more I'm classifying fentanyl as a bioweapon, because it doesn't make sense, You know what doesn't make sense? It doesn't make sense that this fentanyl, because you would want the consumer to keep on buying, What's on the line here? Keep on buying the goods, right? The drugs. But this fentanyl, if it's so much, people are dying from it. You know what I mean? It's counterintuitive. that of course it is dying. That is dying. That is, so many people are dying from it. That's just my point. And more I'm classifying it as, of course, a bioweapon. A bioweapon makes more sense, because I don't know, there's something strange about it. So many overdoses, so many deaths from this fentanyl. A drug is supposed, of course, the drug dealer itself, drug producer, drug creator, is of course supposed to be more adequate, of course, to have the junkie. And I don't know myself because my memory before spring 2014 is a blackout. If I was myself doing hard drugs, if I was a junkie, thank you for those who took their time and build those little forts there like that. It's kind of cool. Appreciate that. So that is something which we have to bet on the thinking about it. More and more I classify fentanyl myself as a bioweapon because there's something missing there. There's something just doesn't add up, you know what I mean? Something just doesn't add up. You tell me what you think. Because, I don't know, you would think what the dealers and the producers of the drug manufacturers want is for the customers to buy regularly of the drug. While there's so many deaths and it just doesn't seem like a drug, you know what I mean? Whatever. So the point is, so we're reproached by the Trump administration, Canada, that we are lack of cooperation, coordination with U.S. law enforcement, and of course, and that the amount of fentanyl that increased triple. It might not be that big, but it increased tripled from 2024 in just the first 7 months of 2025. In the first 7 months of 2025, supposedly it tripled the amount for what the whole 2024 was. Now, the problem is, and the RCMP warned us for years and years, there is a problem here that the RCMP, and this confirms that we have a growing domestic production of fentanyl. The RCMP on the 25th of October, brothers and sisters, on the 25th of October, the RCMP dismantled, they caught, they of course arrested individuals from a transnational criminal syndicate group which were producing massive amounts of fentanyl in a super lab, the biggest ever super lab in Canadian history, on the 25th of October of last year, 2025. Correction, last is 2025 is now. Last year, it's not even been a year. 2024, October 25, 2024, last year. So it's going to be a year this 25th of October. Last year, 2024, October 25th, you can check the information from the RCMP itself. So they dismantled the biggest ever super lab in history of Canada. Supposedly they seized 95 million pills, capsules, doses of fentanyl. Doses of fentanyl. Can you imagine? And supposedly they were able to kill twice the population of Canada. The population of Canada twice over. Those 95 million doses of fentanyl. Twice over. Imagine that deadly. So more and more I'm thinking that there's something odd here. This doesn't add up, because you would think that somebody who's a drug dealer, you don't want your clients to die. You want your clients to just spend money and keep coming, But if people are dying and they end up a mess and dying, that is something which we have, to get that appellation and that just... You let me know what you think if you made it this far into the video, but more and more I'm going to classify this fentanyl as a bioweapon. Maybe we're going to have to. What's going on? Is this transnational organized crime groups? What's going on exactly with this fentanyl? I don't know myself if prior to spring 2014, maybe I was doing hard drugs, maybe I was an alcoholic. I just remember being attacked by surprise, hit my head on the concrete, had a dislocated right shoulder, right arm, was bloodied up, and that is what it is with that, and that is just how we go, and nice barbecue there going on, and that is just something which we have, of course, to get on that barbecue and getting on that drill and getting on the go, It's something which we have, of course, to appellate and to integrate and, to show some goodness and kindness when we can. That's what Aspies we do. we show goodness and kindness by action, you know, not necessarily by verbal consolation, not necessarily by verbal consolation. That's just an aspect thing again. So, nonetheless, I'm worried and I'm alarmed and upset. I get shivers when I discuss it. Never in modern history have we been Canadians, we've been designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat to the United States due to this unusual and extraordinary threat. So you see here where we're going with this. This is alarming and we have to solve this. I believe my DRT, part of the bipolar Imperial strategy, not to be confused with bipolar as in the psychiatric psychological condition, because it has nothing to do with psychiatry, nothing to do with psychology, it has everything to do with being a geopolitical strategy. Bipolarism, we're going to lay the foundations for the bipolar New World Order. I guess in many ways we're going to have like two heads, one to punish, the other one to be benevolent, you know, for empire in the world, I guess. We have like two heads, like that head for the pi symbol. And the DRT now. So by the DRT we will be able to. So the DRT is part of all the other propositions and initiatives known under the umbrella as the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom, our empire of the 63, the 10, the 50, and the 3, and all who will to join us thereafter in the LOVE dance. So the DRT integrates monetary integration theory. We're going to take all the public and the private debt. So now I'm going to explain the DRT. Keep in mind that it integrates monetary integration theory. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. All the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt. My $10,000, your $10,000, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. I love those kind of big white bushes there. See those 4 big ones? So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean, all the debt, public private debt of Canada, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna add it with the US. All that money plus the money in circulation, we're gonna create the Imperial central bank, a new central bank. It's gonna fuse the Bank of Canada, Bank of the Federal Reserve together. Basically, we're gonna fuse the banks, central banks. We're gonna create this new bank to issue a new currency, which is gonna have the value of the US dollar, called the U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The UE. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The UE. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE. The universal exchange unit is gonna have the value of the US dollar. That's what it's gonna be drilling with, a US dollar. The UE is gonna be this new currency. We're gonna make a little bit of that drill. We're gonna make a little bit of that drill. So all of this current public-private debt converted into US dollars, we're gonna add it with the US dollars, and we're gonna create this UE, Universal Exchange Unit, U dot Universal, E dot Exchange, U dot UE. The Universal Exchange Unit is gonna have the value of the US dollar. The value of the US dollar. Value of the US dollar. The value of the US dollar. With that money, of course, we're gonna finance citizens to work out, train, exercise. We're gonna create a new central bank. We're gonna mass finance fitness, mass finance the building construction of those 44 mass cities underground, under tunnel structures. We're gonna mass finance. We're gonna fuse Canada and United States, sign Imperial Republican protocols, perpetual Imperial Republican Union of the 10, the 50, and the 63. We're gonna mass finance healthcare, mass finance the rehabilitation of our brothers and sisters, the criminal population. We're gonna mass finance their rehabilitation, the mass financing of the population. We're gonna mass finance the population, the rehabilitation of our criminal population. To a certain degree we have to discern, but we need you to build those tunnels, and I wish I could get my anonymous friend this house here. And this will be perfect for her here to get on that go for love, and that's how we gotta get doing on that, you know. See, yeah, this house will be perfect for her, and that's what we have to get doing with that, and that's what we have to get appellated here for her. That will be perfect, you know, something which we have to get doing here, right at this house right there. That would be something which would be good, you know, something which we have to get doing on that. So of course all the appellation what we have to get doing, and what we have to get done, and when we have to get living, that is something which we have to get together to do. So all this currency, all the public and the private currency, that's what we're gonna have to do. All the public and the private currencies, that public-private debt is gonna lay the foundations for this new central bank, and we're gonna mass finance the building of more hydroelectric dams here, build more bridges, the infrastructures. We're gonna have to mass rehabilitate and build more bridges. That is just something which we're gonna have to get doing like that, and that is just something which we have to do. Gonna have to build way more bridges, and do of course lots of more tunnels, and do of course something which we have to do, you know, and of course build of course those tunnels, mass tunnel structures in case of a thermonuclear war. That's what we're gonna have to get doing with that, and sometimes we're gonna have to get that implementation, you know, to get it on that drill, and it's something which we have to get the foundational aspects of, and here we are, always rock and rolling, always for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the truckers, the firefighters, the electricians, the plumbers, all those involved in the production, distribution of food, and all those of course who are now on the go, and we get of course the civilizational aspects to get drilling a little bit of that vocation, and all that. DRT is the solution. Again, you can argue all you want, but something can be as another solution, but it has to resemble my DRT theory in essence. In essence, and fundamentally because of the 4 problems, and those 4 problems are, in whatever order, the going cost of rent. Even my rent, but I can't complain. I'm going to say my rent went up. I'm not going to give the exact number of my augmentation of my rent. It went up between 6 and 10. Between 6 and 10. So my rent went up between 6 and 10. Right? Between 6 and 10. Between 6 and 10. Between 6 and 10. Between 6 and 10, right? Between $6 and $10. So I can't complain in my regards. The other is of course the growing cost of rents, and the other one is of course the growing cost is the other one, that is the growing cost of living. Everything is going up. Everything is going up. The price of butter, price of cheese, price of milk, price of bacon, price of sausage, price of lettuce, romaine lettuce, butter, bread, onions. All these are increasing their price. They're increasing the price. They're increasing in price. That's what it is, that's how we go, and that's how we drill. So the other one is the stagnation of the salaries, and another one is the credit cards. All the credit cards are going up mass since for the past 3.5 years. For both Canada and the United States, we have record-breaking credit card usage, and it's keeping going up, so it cannot be sustained. You realize that we're in deep trouble. We realize that we are in deep trouble. We are in deep trouble. So of course the DRT, the debt refusion theory for the creation of the UE is something which we have to of course implement. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars, all of it. All the public-private debt converted into US dollars, added with the US public-private debt, and that's gonna of course be the new money supply. We're gonna create the UE, U.Universal, U.Exchange, U.Unit. With that money, we're gonna mass finance the rebuilding of the infrastructure of the North America. We're gonna get rid of the border, do a great census, see who's been living here since the past, let's say 7 years, to do a great census, and of course see who's been living here in the past, to do who's been living here in the past 7 years. Do a great census, see who's been living here, and of course see who's been living here, and see of course something which we have to do, who's been living here, and of course have that situation where we have of course the situational aspects where we build those bridges and build those 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war, and see who's been living here since 2017, let's say, do a census, of course build the 4 Imperial People's Colosseum, the Forgotten Goddess Temple, House of the Dragon, get rid of the border, do a census, create the 2 complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the Dragon Army, aka officially the Imperial Republican Guard, fuse the RCMP and the FBI. The FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, is kind of the co-equivalent with the RCMP, create a common passport, mass finance intra-imperial, across the 63 tourism for citizens rehabilitation because it did me some good, mass finance fitness with it, mass finance rebuilding, building social housing, and mass finance elements for total security, total service, total defense, such of course as they were structured in, complementary in the structure of building and in public-private partnership, all webcams everywhere, webcams, and people will go to it, to citizens, to see all the things that are going from coast to coast, ocean to ocean. For example, the trucks in real time across the highways. We're gonna monitor the trucks, the truckers and the trucks and the highways and the public spaces, and we're gonna have events, and with the Dancing Goddess Army, aka the Imperial Integrated Dance League, the Imperial Integrated Dance League, the Imperial Integrated Dance League. That's what we're gonna do, and that's what we're gonna do. The Imperial Integrated Dance League, to dance for the environment and go across the great cities, of course, to see where they people, and to do the environmental action and environmental work, environmental education and environmental action. That's what we're gonna do. Double. We're gonna do the environmental action, and that's what we're gonna do. Environmental action. And by the DGA, the Dancing Goddess Army. So that is of course something which is gonna be protruted to doing, and it's gonna take some doing with it, It's gonna take some doing with that, and that is of course something which of course we're gonna must do. And of course all that environmental aspects is something where we're gonna have to be doing internally and integrally. And of course all the implementation of the DRT, the debt refusion theory, has to be done now, because those 4 problems are not getting any better, they're actually getting worse. So paradoxically on the table as the solution is, if you're about that work 24/7, see if you need some slippers, you might get some here. Somebody left them for you, and I have enough for me, but somebody can take, and you have a pair of slippers there. I guess you can get it now. I guess I have to, it's too small my place anyways, too small. I have enough. I have to give some away, but that is just something which we have of course to interject, and have to of course salute, and have of course to compliment. And look at that biggie, isn't that really cool? Thank you workers. Imagine all the brains, the muscle to build hundreds of thousands and tens of thousands of transmission lines just like that, which of course create our electricity and make all our networks, which are sometimes, our networks are of course, that is our networks which are of course complementary, and to do the complementarity, to see where we are, to get doing with that, and we gotta get on that drilling, and we gotta get of course to know it. Move out of the way if I'm in the bike space, and if I'm in the bike space there with that. But that is gorgeous, isn't that gorgeous? Just super nice there, just super nice. And brains and muscle of course were used of course to build that, and that gives us of course our transmission electricity, of course, which we transmit. If you build this, you get free hugs, free massages, washing of the feet, that rock and roll. If you build this or anything like this, Holler the Dragon, you get some free loving, you get some rock and roll, because look at that, that's a beauty. So that transmits the electricity, and of course we're open for potential sabotage and espionage. You know, we're open now for potential sabotage and espionage, of course, in all the dimensions, of course, that we're open now for the potential, of course, of the sabotage and the espionage, which is ongoing, and the directive, of course, which we have, of course, to apply it, of course, fully and integrate it in, of course, in all the civilizational aspects where we are and what we're doing, of course, in the drills to get, of course, all the operational influence where we got, you know. That's what we have to get, and that's what we have to get on that understanding, you know, to getting on the go, you know. That is just something where we have, of course, to fully understand it. Now we gotta cross the street. Here, probably sometimes they come fast, you know. Sometimes they might come fast and you might just move in the way. So there's a tender, some things where we have to get a little bit of that tent, man. I don't know if it's temporary or whatever it is, but that's what we have to get doing with that. And we have to appellate, of course, because here they come fast. So that's why it's better to not go on that way, see. They got, of course, on the side of the things, and got to get it on the appellation, you know, to get it now the foundation of this. I don't know what this is. This structure, I have no idea what that is, you know. I really have no idea what that structure is. Kind of looks nice, kind of looks a bit temple-esque, maybe public works. And that is something which we do, and that is something which we go, and that is just something which we have to see, you know, and we have to do, you know, to get it on the go, that, and that's just how we have to do, you know. Something which we have to get doing on that, man, you know. Yeah. Cross the street here. I'm just gonna cross fast and watch it, because sometimes they come, and I gotta watch for the bikes, man. So they go watching for the bikes. So that's what we have to. So it's an emergency. You have to say that it's an emergency, and this emergency can only be solved by something which resembles my DRT, the debt refusion theory. DRT, debt refusion theory, which integrates monetary integration theory, MIT, which is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union. The MIT, the monetary integration theory, which was implemented in the European Union. So that is something which you have to think, because of those four problems. These four problems. 1, growing cost of rents. 2, growing cost of living, the price of bacon, price of eggs, price of cheese, price of lettuce, price of bread, milk, eggs, lettuce, for my wafers, the milk, the bacon, the cheese, the eggs, the bread, and the products are going higher in price. Prices are increasing. The credit card debt is increasing. It's already reached record levels. 4 is, of course, the stagnation of the salary. So you can put those in whatever order you want, but fundamentally those are the 4 main problems. So my DRT theory, you can argue all you want, but something which resembles in theory in the fundamental principles outlined, integrated in my DRT theory is of course the solution. You can argue all you want, but that is something which we gotta get doing on that, and we gotta get doing on the go. You know, so something in appellation where we have, of course, integrally, of course, in the appellation where we got to implement my DRT theory or something similar, that could be the solution to it, if it is something similar in proposition. But fundamentally, it has to resemble, again, my DRT theory in essence. It has to resemble my DRT theory. If not, it has to be close to my DRT theory. That's what it is with that. That's what it is. And that's what we have to get doing with that. Of course, the DRT theory is as a general theory to be implemented, because really we're facing a catastrophic financial. It could crash right today. It might have crashed when I get back home. I see the stock market crash. Tomorrow morning it might crash. It might of course crash. It might of course crash now. So that is just what we have to do fundamentally, and rock and roll with it. We're gonna do lots of good with that. Like I said, get rid of the border. mass finance fitness, mass finance citizens to work out, mass finance exercising, mass finance get rid of the border, create coast to coast, ocean to ocean, those 44 underground cities tunnels, where of course we're gonna have the solution to, in case of a thermonuclear war, we're gonna have some deterrence, I guess, especially for the youth, because we're going to build those massive cities, so we got to start getting in it. Or we're going to create first total security service and defense and total integration of the citizens in the security plateau, where we're going to have cameras, webcams for total security, total service, total defense, and mass finance volunteering. We're going to mass finance volunteering, citizens to volunteer, citizens, of course, to volunteer, because we're going to have to credit or some of those UEs as well. So we're going to credit, of course, some UEs, universal exchange units, in case citizens, UEs are going to be credited for fitness. Example, to do my workout training program system, which again requires no equipment, which is relatively easy, simple to do, not necessarily that easy, but it requires no equipment. It is fundamentally an efficient, effective workout training program system, which requires no equipment. So that is just the fundamental aspects of where we are, of what we do, of what we are, of course, congregated to do. Because it takes doing. So pledge your allegiance, our family. Time for some of that Quebec French here, because we did a little bit of that English. Gonna do a little bit of that French. Free French. Anybody went loving, blah 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 blah. Do some French volunteering, and that's what we gotta get drilling with, and that's how we're gonna spit it out now from the mouth of the dragon, rainbow dragon. In that French, pledge your allegiance, friends with benefits only, 18 plus. Rock and roll. Bienvenue. Je suis sur la marche, changer un peu de trajectoire. Je dis, je vais passer par la rivière, par une autre place. J'avais un rendez-vous, puis un petit peu de bénévolat. J'aime ça faire du bénévolat, donc c'est quelque chose que j'aime. Fait que dans ce sens, pour l'en faire, c'est sûr que c'est toujours quelque chose que ça me dérange pas d'en faire. Ça me dérange pas, bien sûr, d'en faire du bénévolat. Et moi-même, pour le français, c'est sûr qu'il faut que je le fasse, comme qu'on a fait, qu'est-ce que je dis toujours, ici au Québec, à Montréal, on a fait le grand compromis linguistique du français. Fait que c'est sûr que moi aussi, je dois le mettre en pratique quand je le fais de la même manière. Mais c'est sûr que des fois, bien sûr, c'est un peu... Ça prend notre effort individuel aussi. Ça prend, bien, c'est sûr, du financement, du soutien, organisation, organisme, mais c'est sûr que ça prend du soutien indépendant de l'individu en tant que, bien sûr, l'être moi-même en étant différent. Je veux dire, c'est d'une autre manière, peut-être pas mal par mon rock and roll que je puisse le faire le plus. Je vais traverser, puis juste dire que cette maison-là, si proche de l'eau, la rivière, ou peut-être bien sûr où que se retrouve à Sainte-Anne-de-Bellevue pour mon ami anonyme, ça serait quelque chose et que ça serait bien sûr important de le faire. Fait que bien sûr, pour être dire, celle-là, je la trouve vraiment belle, cette maison qui est là. Bien sûr, c'est quelque chose qui m'intéresse, et bien sûr d'acheter à mon ami anonyme une maison pour dire. Fait que là, je vais commencer avec la gratitude. Avec la gratitude, j'ai payé mon loyer. J'ai payé ma facture d'électricité. J'ai payé mon cellulaire. Ces 3 factures sont payées. Mais je vis quand même un stress financier. Mais aujourd'hui, j'ai un don des fruits. Puis c'était plus des fruits. Puis un peu de laitue. Là, fait que ça a fait un peu bon. Là. Avec la laitue, c'est ça. Ça donnait un peu en avoir. Un peu de laitue. Fait que ça a toujours fait quelque chose de bon vis-à-vis que on aille bien sûr de quoi se nourrir, c'est important. Hein? La nutrition, moi je suis quelqu'un j'aime mes gaufres, j'aime mon chocolat, mais à cause de mon Asperger's, puis justement, tantôt j'ai rencontré quelqu'un qui savait pas c'est quoi, il n'y a pas bien qui savent, et juste pour l'introduire un peu, mais c'est pas premièrement, il faut commencer pour dire c'est pas une maladie. C'est pas une maladie, l'Asperger's. C'est une condition de neurodivergence. Et donc, à cause de ça, à cause de cette condition de neurodivergence, on est différent et on voit le monde différemment, tu sais. on voit le monde différemment. On voit le monde différemment. Et bien sûr, en voyant le monde différemment, à cause de ces mutations du cerveau, on a comme des routines rituelles. Comme des routines rituelles qui se tournent nos jours au quotidien, se préoccupent surtout vis-à-vis de nos intérêts spéciaux. Puis encore une fois, pour dire, l'Asperger, c'est pas une maladie. Je corrige souvent les gens, c'est pas une maladie, hein? C'est pas une maladie, ce n'est pas une maladie. Je l'ai entendu même quand j'ai fait du travail, parce que j'ai eu bien du travail. Le problème chez les aspis, c'est qu'on a tendance à perdre les emplois à cause de... On est différent, fait que cette différence, ça fait toujours que on a de la difficulté, bien sûr, à l'être dans ce point de compromis pour l'être, bien sûr. Le point d'envergence, ça fait que c'est dans ce sens qu'on est différent, tu sais. La manière qu'on communique, tu sais. La manière qu'on communique, c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on aille. Puis la communication, des fois, c'est plus difficile. La communication, des fois, c'est plus difficile chez nous. C'est sûr qu'on a bien à communiquer, bien sûr, mais c'est de la manière qu'on communique. Des fois, c'est différent. La manière qu'on communique, c'est différent. Fait que ça peut être un peu difficile parfois. C'est juste qu'il faut bâtir les ponts. Hein. Veux pas, les ponts, il faut qu'on construise les ponts ensemble parce que moi-même, j'ai pas d'antagonisme envers vous, les 99,56%, parce que nous, on est moins d'1%, hein, moins de la moitié d'un pourcentage, on est à peu près 0,44%. Fait que veux pas, il faut qu'on travaille, puis il faut qu'on bâtit les ponts, des fois des petits ponts moyens, ponts larges, ponts extra larges. Fait que c'est 4 ponts, mais c'est 4 catégories. Vous savez que c'est comme quand vous commandez un café, tu sais, ou des frites. Ça peut être que vous commandez une petite frite moyenne, large, extra large. Et bien sûr, vous faites une commande des frites ou du café dans ce sens-là. C'est dans ce sens-là. Fait que c'est comme ça qu'on doit construire les ponts avec des différents individus vis-à-vis à cette condition de neurodivergence. Une condition de neurodivergence, c'est pas une maladie. Des fois, tu sais, on a certaines caractéristiques. On va répéter 2-3 fois la même chose. On va s'approcher trop proche des gens quand on discute. Et donc, c'est ces choses-là qui sont, bien sûr, qui sont différentes pour nous. Puis, je dois remercier à mon ami Anonyme pour 2 livres qui ont été donnés en cadeau sur l'autisme, sur l'Asperger, puis un livre en particulier qui a été loué 4 fois parce que c'était un prêt de la bibliothèque et qui m'a fait apprendre, bien sûr, qu'il y a bonne différence, mes vulnérabilités aussi vis-à-vis à ça, à cause de 4 vulnérabilités, avec plusieurs vulnérabilités, là, mais c'est que nous, on voit le monde différemment, fait que c'est la question, les normes non écrites de la société, dans le social, c'est plus différent. On a de la misère, on comprend pas certaines choses, tu sais. On comprend ça, certaines choses pour le faire, bien sûr, pour le faire ici, dans ce point de compromis, mais il faut toujours bâtir les ponts. Fait que dans ce sens-là, on peut s'intégrer complètement à une manière, bien sûr, faire du travail, qu'est-ce qu'on a à faire. C'est juste que quand ça vient au social, peut-être c'est là que c'est le plus difficile. Je dis toujours, peut-être nous, là, les aspis, ça serait idéal si on fait les tâches sans devoir parler d'autres choses, tu sais. Sans devoir parler d'autres choses, que ça soit d'autres choses, des choses comme ça, mais c'est bien sûr ces choses-là qui sont par rapport à intégrer vis-à-vis d'une manière que je sois, bien sûr, aujourd'hui vis-à-vis l'être, bien sûr, de la manière que ça soit pour le faire, bien sûr, dans ce compromis, bien sûr, pour le faire, bien sûr, pour le faire, bien sûr, de l'être, bien sûr, pour le faire ici, bien sûr, pour le faire. C'est bien sûr dans cette constance, c'est bien sûr qu'on a à faire, puis c'est du travail à faire. Et des souliers, non, c'est pas des souliers, mais ça a tombé des souliers, je veux dire, c'est sorti de les souliers. Rouge, c'est ma couleur préférée, mais j'en ai pas vraiment besoin. Mon ami Anonyme, je vais le laisser là pour quelqu'un qui va retourner après, s'ils sont là, mais c'est des bas. Il faut que je commence à... Ben, dès l'automne, je vais ouvrir le sac. Je pense que je l'ai ouvert, j'ai un nouveau sac que j'ai acheté, mais je pense qu'il n'est pas... qui est en l'envers d'avoir... je l'ai ouvert, puis j'ai juste pris une paire. Je pense qu'il y a 20 paires ou 10 paires. Il faut voir que Vérifie, je l'ai acheté il y a un couple de mois, plus que 4 mois. Là. C'est 20 paires en actualité. C'est 20. C'est un paquet de 20 paires. J'avais juste pris une paire. Je peux l'acheter à 10 $. Fait que c'est 50 cents la paire. Ça, c'est une autre question, bien sûr. Des fois, les autistes, les Asperger, on a bien sûr des préoccupations de la manière qu'on bouge. Des fois, on peut bouger d'une manière, bien sûr, plus bizarre un peu. On a certaines caractéristiques rituelles aussi. Puis nos routines se tournent, nos journées au quotidien se tournent autour de nos intérêts spéciaux. Et bien sûr, c'est nos intérêts spéciaux, bien sûr, qui nous préoccupent. Le quotidien, bien sûr. C'est le quotidien, bien sûr, qui se tourne autour de ces routines rituelles qui font qu'on aille. Des fois qu'on a des problèmes, qu'on néglige certaines choses, c'est du social ou quoi que ce soit. Puis, les 3 problèmes majeurs chez les aspis, c'est le manque d'amis. C'est pour ça que ma solution est pas perdre votre temps, perdre des palmiers, des amis avec bénéfices seulement, des amis avec bénéfices seulement, mais that's it, that's all, des amis avec bénéfices seulement, tu sais. Des amis avec bénéfices pour l'instant, puis c'est ça bien sûr pour qu'on fasse. Des amis avec bénéfices, c'est quelque chose bien sûr qu'il faut le faire dans ce point de contingence que je sois bien sûr moi-même. C'est des amis avec bénéfices que je souhaite avoir, puis bien sûr pour avoir des échanges de massages, bien sûr pour le faire dans ce point de confordance qu'on est bien sûr rendu aujourd'hui à faire, c'est la solution. On n'a pas beaucoup d'amis les Asperger, puis le manque, aussi le problème, c'est le taux de suicide puis de dépression est très élevé, bien sûr. Le taux de suicide et de dépression est très élevé. Moi j'étais là, j'ai traversé le Canada, je célèbre aujourd'hui plus que 8 ans en août, quand j'ai traversé le Canada en août et en septembre. Cet événement-là, ça m'a fait sortir de ma dépression et depuis ce temps-là, bien sûr, j'ai commencé à m'entraîner. J'ai perdu entre 80 et 90 livres, 93 livres. J'ai perdu beaucoup de poids, j'étais en dépression, j'étais suicidaire pendant un couple d'années. J'ai déménagé de Côte-des-Neiges, j'habitais dans c'était comme une petite cellule de prison. Là. Il y avait plein de moisissures, puis c'était petit, même la salle de bain, il n'y avait pas de bain, là. C'était comme une douche de prison, là. C'était vraiment comme une cellule de prison sauvage, là. Tu sais, je sais pas combien de temps que j'habitais là, si je faisais beaucoup de la drogue avant ça. Peut-être à cause de ça, j'ai la misère à souvenir ma mémoire. Avant 2014, le printemps, c'est sûr, 2014, là, le printemps 2014, ça fait 11 ans, là. Plus qu'11 ans, 11 ans et 4 mois, là. Ça fait quand même un bout. Printemps 2014... Ça fait quand même un bout, là. C'est 11 ans et 4 mois, fait que ça fait longtemps, hein. 11 ans et 4 mois, c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, qu'il faut que je le fasse, moi aussi, 11 ans et 4 mois. Mais bon, je sais pas, je buvais beaucoup d'alcool avant ça, avant le printemps 2014. J'étais sous la drogue, je m'en souviens, j'ai été attaqué par surprise. J'ai survécu à une attaque vicieuse. Par surprise, je suis tombé, je connais ma tête par terre. J'étais tout ensanglé, j'étais tout ensanglé, puis j'avais le bras droit disloqué, tu sais. J'avais le bras droit disloqué, mais l'épaule, j'étais allé à l'hôpital général juif, ils m'ont recraqué l'épaule droit, ils m'ont mis sur des médicaments. J'étais comme dans un coma pendant un couple de jours. Et bien sûr, c'est des choses pour le faire dans ce point de circonstance que ça soit. Bien sûr, pour vivre, bien sûr, de là-bas, pour l'être, bien sûr, de cette mesure, d'en avoir dans ce bon point, puis la volonté, puis ces choses, bien sûr, pour l'être aujourd'hui, pour vivre dans cette circonstance de neurodivergence, puis j'ai perdu beaucoup d'emplois aussi, j'ai eu bien de l'emploi, j'ai bien aimé, avec le CHSLD, avec dans l'acier, dans plusieurs, tu sais, fait que... J'aime ça le travail, c'est juste que c'est difficile. Le taux de chômage de sans-emploi chez les Aspergers, là, en tenant compte qu'on n'est pas une petite communauté, on n'est pas une petite communauté, là, moins d'1% de la population, hein, c'est pas beaucoup, c'est pas souvent, c'est pas commun, là, l'Aspergers. Donc, le taux de chômage, par exemple, de sans-emploi est plus que 80%, là. Fait que ça, c'est inacceptable, tu sais. Plus que 80%. Plus que 80%, fait que c'est une chose, bien sûr, qu'il faut que ça soit. Plus que 80%. Tu sais, c'est des choses qu'il faut qu'on le voie, tu sais. C'est 80%, tu sais. 80%. C'est tôt, c'est haut quand même, tu sais. 80%, tu sais. C'est des choses qu'il faut qu'on voie, tu sais. Puis c'est l'affaire, bien sûr, qu'il faut le savoir, tu sais. C'est à 80%, là. C'est tôt, c'est haut, tu sais. c'est quelque chose de bien sûr qu'il faut le dire. Tu sais, c'est des choses de bien sûr qu'il faut le savoir, tu sais, bien sûr. Puis il faut l'intégrer, puis il faut trouver les solutions. Moi, par exemple, il faut me le dire directement. Je suis quelqu'un qui n'aime pas la violence, tu sais. Je suis quelqu'un qui n'aime pas la violence. Je suis quelqu'un qui n'aime pas la violence, fait que ça fait quelque chose, bien sûr, que ça fasse dans la circonstance, bien sûr, qu'on aille, puis qu'on vit ensemble pour le faire de la manière, bien sûr, qu'on soit vis-à-vis de nos besoins, puis de notre soutien. Moi, j'ai pas besoin de soutien, par exemple. Ouais, moi, j'ai pas besoin de beaucoup de soutien. La compréhension, mais pas bien de soutien, par exemple. Mon seul stress maintenant est financier, du point de vue financièrement, mais je dois commencer à dire ma gratitude. J'ai payé mon loyer, payé ma facture d'électricité, payé mon cellulaire. Ces 3 factures sont payées. Où on est le 19 aujourd'hui, 19 août, fait que ça vient dans un couple de jours, puis on commence septembre. Là. Il nous reste 33 jours d'été. On va prendre soin. Bon, fait que là, je veux pas perdre... comme je vous dis, je veux pas perdre votre temps. Juste, si vous voulez être mon ami, ami avec bénéfice, là, ou prêter allégeance les gens, soutenez mon rêve, mon travail, qui est fondamentalement se trouve dans le géopolitique. C'est là que je suis bon, c'est là, bien sûr, que se trouve pas mal de mon travail vis-à-vis que je suis artiste, athlète, philosophe et analyste théoricien en géopolitique. Mais à part ça, c'est sûr que j'ai de la misère dans certaines choses, comme la compréhension sociale. Il faut toujours qu'on y travaille en tant qu'Asperger à bâtir ces ponts qui peuvent être des 4 catégories que j'ai mentionnées, des petits ponts, des ponts moyens, des larges ou des extra larges. Dans ces 4 catégories, c'est sûr qu'il y a d'autres catégories qui se trouvent. Mais comme j'ai dit auparavant, c'est sûr qu'il faut les bâtir d'une manière ou d'une autre. Des fois, ça prend plus d'efforts avec un individu qu'un autre. Je suis aussi un individu citoyen souverain, tu sais. Fait que dans ce individu citoyen souverain, c'est sûr que ça rentre de cette manière que je suis, puis que je m'incline à dire, bien sûr, de cette discussion qu'on a toujours, une discussion inclinante vis-à-vis de mon travail. Donc, je suis bon au rock'n'roll, l'entraînement physique, la danse, c'est le sport que je préfère, de la chorégraphie de danse, du rock'n'roll 24/24, et de l'entraînement physique. Et puis de l'entraînement physique. Fait que c'est toujours dans ce sens pour le faire, pour l'avoir. Dans ce sens où il y a du travail, que je suis toujours pauvre, tu sais. Fait que c'est toujours un dynamisme que moi-même j'amène sur la table quand ça vient plus aux philosophies, mais ces philosophies initiatives, ils doivent être implémentées, intégrées, bien sûr. Implémentées puis intégrées, parce que bien sûr, il faut qu'il y ait une intégration ou une implémentation de ces catégories-là. Fait que ces catégories-là, bien sûr, c'est quelque chose que ça nous dit toujours de vouloir s'imprimer, s'intégrer dans cette manière où on aille, puis c'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut avoir dans sa compréhension, d'avoir l'action aussi, parallèlement, tu sais. Ça prend de l'action aussi, parce que c'est sûr que si mes théories restent aussi, tu sais, parler de la construction des ponts, parler de ça, c'est passé. Il faut avoir des actions concrètes aussi. Puis nous, on nous reproche des fois, les Aspergers, qu'on n'a pas de compassion ou l'empathie. C'est pas ça. Vous comprenez qu'un aspi, là, quelqu'un avec l'Aspergers, il va vous offrir quelque chose, s'il peut le faire. À la place des paroles, juste des paroles, la consolation verbale, tu sais. Comme tantôt, j'avais discuté avec quelqu'un, puis il a dit, je suis désolé, puis j'ai corrigé, j'ai dit, pourquoi vous êtes désolé, c'est pas de ta faute, c'est pas de ta faute, c'est ça l'Asperger, vous comprenez? Comme, tu sais, les choses sociales, ça bloque un peu, tu sais, quand quelqu'un dit, comme état, moi je dis, je suis en stress financièrement, ou j'ai vécu une dépression, ou je suis attaqué par surprise, un couple d'années, puis blablabla, que ça soit une des choses mauvaises qui m'est arrivée dans la vie, puis la personne va dire, je m'excuse. Moi, je vais corriger la personne, ou je vais dire automatiquement, pourquoi vous vous excusez? Pourquoi vous vous excusez? Pourquoi vous excusez? C'est pas votre faute, vous comprenez? Fait que c'est pas votre faute. Fait que toujours, c'est ça l'Asperger, mais c'est une manière de parler de la communication sociale. Tu sais, vous comprenez? Fait que c'est ça le problème des fois là, avec l'Asperger, parce que même la personne, peut-être, elle s'en fiche, mais elle va dire, ben, je m'excuse ou je suis désolé, mais dans le fond, la personne s'en fiche ou ben, c'est pas de sa faute. Fait que pourquoi, à pas être la personne citoyenne qui dit ça, n'a pas à être désolé, vous comprenez? Parce que quelque chose m'est arrivé, parce que c'est pas de sa faute. Fait que moi, toujours, j'ai répondu, puis ça arrive souvent, j'ai même ça sur la caméra, que ça, souvent automatique, sans j'y pense même pas. Puis je dis, ben, pourquoi vous excusez? Pourquoi vous excusez? Pourquoi vous excusez? C'est pas de votre faute. Ben, c'est pourquoi vous excusez? C'est pas votre faute. Ben, c'est vrai, hein? C'est pas la faute d'un citoyen que moi j'ai vécu ma dépression, j'ai été suicidaire, que j'ai été attaqué par surprise, que je suis en stress financier. Nous, les Aspergers, c'est ça la différence, que nous, on voit le monde différemment à cause de ces mutations. Fait que nous, on va pas nécessairement dire je m'excuse, je suis désolé pour toi, mais si on peut faire quelque chose, on va le faire ou on va offrir de le faire. Tu sais, je peux-tu faire quelque chose? Vous comprenez? C'est juste la manière de la compassion. On la montre d'une autre manière, nous. Mais c'est quand même de la compassion. C'est quand même l'empathie. C'est juste qu'il y a cette différence. On ne va pas nécessairement offrir de la consolation verbale. Vous comprenez? Comme tu vois, moi, je ne suis pas stressé sexuellement. Je n'ai pas de frustration sexuelle en ce moment. Si j'en ai, j'aurais parlé. Tu sais, vous comprenez, je parle ouvertement, mais je suis homme, je suis femme, je suis androgyne pansexuel, 50-50, mais ami avec bénéfice, vous avez 18 ans et plus. Mais j'aime ça sadomasochisme, que ça soit bien d'autres choses. Mais juste à venir me voir, puis si je peux le faire d'une manière, ben, je vais le faire, là. Si vous êtes ami avec bénéfice, tant que ça ne me nuit pas, tant que ça me fait pas mal, tant que... Tu comprenez? Des choses ça, comme ça. Là. C'est là la différence, vous comprenez? C'est une partie de l'Asperger's, puis ça peut être un peu bizarre, peut-être un peu étrange. Parce que c'est pas dans les normes, vous comprenez? C'est pas dans les normes. C'est pas dans les normes, vous comprenez? C'est pas dans les normes. Pas dans les normes de qu'est-ce qu'on considère normal dans la société ou dans cette... Vous comprenez? Mais il y a toujours du dynamisme, il y a toujours du progrès qui se fait, puis... Supposément, moi je ne crois pas vraiment, il va falloir que je fasse des recherches. Supposément, l'ABC de nouvelles, ils ont fait un documentaire, ils disent que l'Asperger, c'est bien sûr un point d'évolution. Un point d'évolution, de l'évolution de l'humain. Fait que moi, je ne sais pas ça. Bon, là, je vais parler de la géopolitique. Super important que j'en discute les 4 minutes qui me restent. Dans ces 4 minutes, on va essayer de faire un rock'n'roll géopolitique. C'est ça mon intérêt spécial. Je suis moi-même un artiste, athlète, analyste, théoricien indépendant dans la géopolitique. Donc, juste pour dire, de cette manière, j'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant en 2019. En octobre, novembre 2019, j'ai prévu, bien sûr, qu'il y aura une conflagration internationale. Une conflagration internationale. J'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant. C'est sûr que pas avec tous les détails là, qui existent, qui arrivent, mais d'un point de vue général, là, d'une manière... j'ai prévu cette situation parce que j'avais conclu qu'à cause des conflits qui n'ont pas été résolus du 20e siècle, durant la guerre froide, ces conflits-là vont reprendre. Puis d'une manière, c'est ça qui arrive en ce moment, vous comprenez? Qu'est-ce que vous voyez dans le monde? C'est ça qui s'arrive. C'est ça qui se passe maintenant. C'est des conflits en majeure partie qui n'ont pas été résolus comme ici au Québec, au Canada, dans qu'est-ce que j'appelle le complexe de l'Amérique du Nord. On a fait qu'est-ce que j'appelle le grand compromis linguistique du français pour avoir la continuité de l'harmonie. Puis pour dire, bien sûr, dans une autre parallèle, que je vous mets sur la table une solution parce que là, on est en problème, en crise financièrement, mais avant que je discute ça, il faut que je le dise, le principe, là, nous, là, Québec, Canada, Canadiens, Québécois, Canadiens, avec les États-Unis aussi, c'est réciproque. Nous, il faut qu'on vise, je veux dire, quand ça vient aux priorités de la géopolitique, de la politique externe, nous, là, notre priorité principale, à cause de la géographie, puis notre destin commun, puis notre histoire, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations économiques, financières, de diplomatie, à tous les niveaux, d'avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. Et ça, c'est comme le symbole pi qui représente 2 N, c'est la lettre N, comme N pour Normand, Normandie, neurodivergent, neutre. La lettre N qui représente ce symbole pi pour le symbole de la circonférence et du cercle, c'est toujours 3.1416, 3.1415, là. Puis ça continue, le numéro, c'est pour la relation du cercle. Le pi, le symbole, c'est un symbole, c'est comme un N, la lettre N, c'est pour ça notre empire républicain, le fusionnement du Canada et des États-Unis aura comme ces deux têtes comme le symbole N. Fait que nous, il faut qu'on vise pour avoir les meilleures relations, des meilleures relations à tous les niveaux avec les États-Unis et les États-Unis envers nous. Il n'y a pas de non, il n'y a pas de peut-être, c'est oui, 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 oui. Vous ne pouvez pas négocier avec ce principe. C'est un principe qui est toujours constamment la même chose. Ça a été comme ça pendant des décennies. Ça va être comme ça dans les décennies à venir. À moins que quelque chose change d'une manière vraiment exaspérable, là, vraiment incroyable. Là. Mais jusqu'à maintenant, ça a été de même. Parce qu'on a deux océans de côte à côte, d'océan à océan, bien sûr, de l'autre à l'autre. On a l'Atlantique puis le Pacifique, bien sûr. Pour ça faire, c'est bien sûr de la même manière qu'on doit faire l'implémentation de la TRD. Parce que les quatre problèmes qui nous touchent le plus, soit le surendettement par les cartes de crédit, l'augmentation des prix des loyers, les prix des loyers qui augmentent, le coût de la vie qui augmente, le beurre, le fromage, les œufs, le bacon, tous ces prix-là augmentent. Fait que bien sûr, dans ce point de compromis, bien sûr, pour le faire, dans ce point de l'augmentation du salaire, il n'y en a pas l'augmentation du salaire, c'est la stagnation du salaire. C'est la stagnation du salaire. C'est la stagnation du salaire, bien sûr. Fait que le salaire, il stagne. Et bien sûr, cette stagnation du salaire, c'est problématique. À cause, bien sûr, qu'on a ces problèmes aussi qui se vis-à-vis dans ce point de contingence pour l'être, pour dire, bien sûr, ici, de savoir vécu de cette situation-là, pour le faire, bien sûr, aujourd'hui, pour vivre dans cette constance, pour être en forme, pour faire l'implémentation de la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Fait que la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation dans un point catégorique, d'avoir, bien sûr, une position de dire qu'on est en crise. Et ces quatre problèmes-là, ils font que on doit faire l'implémentation de la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, pour la création d'une l'unité d'échange universelle, oui. Donc, on doit faire toujours l'appelant, bien sûr, de la Constitution, de faire la création de l'unité d'échange universelle. Fait que maintenant, je vous l'explique. Qu'est-ce que c'est la unité d'échange universelle? Ça va être par l'implémentation de la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, à cause de ces quatre problèmes. Les quatre problèmes majeurs qui nous touchent sont dans quel ordre que vous les mettez. Vous pouvez les mettre dans un ordre ou dans un autre. Bien sûr, c'est la complémentaire pour être... Fait que ces quatre problèmes, soit l'augmentation des prix, le beurre, le fromage, les œufs, toutes ces choses-là, ils augmentent. L'augmentation de ces choses-là, bien sûr, ça n'arrête pas d'augmenter. Ça n'arrête pas d'augmenter. Bien sûr, ça n'augmente pas. Ça augmente. Et bien sûr, cette augmentation, bien sûr, ces points de... Le salaire n'augmente pas, bien sûr, mais bien sûr, ces choses, ils augmentent, bien sûr. Les coûts de la vie, le coût des saucisses, le fromage, les saucisses, les fromages, les saucisses, le bacon, ça augmente. Et bien sûr, dans ce point de vue, ça augmente. Et bien sûr, les salaires stagnent, les autres produits augmentent. Les autres produits augmentent. Le lait, le beurre, le pain, les prix augmentent. Puis ils continuent d'augmenter au quotidien. Fait que bien sûr, pour le faire dans ce point de contingence, bien sûr, pour le faire. Bon, fait que ces quatre problèmes, ça nous touche vraiment, ça nous presse, ça nous touche. L'augmentation du salaire n'existe pas en grosse partie, en grosse majorité. C'est là, on va prendre, je vous l'explique, la TRD, on va prendre toute la dette publique-privée, mon 10 000, ton 10 000, ton 10 000 de côte à côte. On va faire la conversion de toute la dette publique du Canada. On va faire la conversion dans la devise des États-Unis. Puis dans ma TRD est intégrée la théorie d'intégration citoyenne. Puis il faut que ça soit implémenté d'une manière binationale. Fait que de côte à côte, d'océan à océan, toute la dette publique-privée, on va la mettre ensemble, on va la convertir dans la devise des États-Unis. On va bien sûr faire l'addition avec la dette des États-Unis. On va faire la création d'une nouvelle banque comme qu'on fait en Europe, mais la Banque impériale républicaine en fusionnant la Banque du Canada et la Banque des États-Unis, puis on va mettre en marché, en circulation, une autre monnaie qui aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. Le UI. U, on ne s'obstinera pas, en anglais c'est pareil. U, point unité, E, point échange, point universel. U, point unité, E, point échange, point universel. U, point unité, E, point échange universel. U, point unité, E, point échange, point universel. UI. U, point unité, E, point échange, point universel. Le UI. L'unité d'échange universel aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. Avec cet argent-là, on va mettre un taux d'intérêt de 10%. Ce taux d'intérêt, bien sûr, va être constamment la même chose. Ça va être un maximum de 10. Avec l'implémentation de la TRD ainsi que la création de nouvelles banques qu'on va mettre en circulation, oui, on va financer les gens au tourisme, à l'entraînement physique, finir avec la frontière. On va bien sûr faire un recensement. On va faire un établissement d'un passeport commun. On va faire, bien sûr, bâtir les 44 tunnels de côte à côte des 44 tunnels massifs, cités massifs, tunnels pour, dans le cas qu'il y a une guerre nucléaire, thermonucléaire. On va rebâtir l'infrastructure, financer les gens à l'entraînement physique, financer les gens au tourisme, bâtir plus de centrales Hydro-Québec, faire ce grand recensement, voir à qui on peut donner de l'amnistie, voir bien sûr à qui on va pouvoir donner du financement que ça soit, puis ça va nous sauver de frontières.